Topic 1. Joe Rogan has recently come under fire for saying that straight white men were being silenced because of woke culture. Similar comments have been made by other rich straight white male entertainers. Where does this feeling of victimhood come from? Do you envision a future where this mentality is a thing of the past, or is this inevitable when dealing with any historically privileged demographic majority? Yeah. So Joe Rogan was like, was it straight white men should not gonna be able to like walk outside or some shit like that. It was he was speaking a lot of bullshit, right? And it seems to me, it comes from that like your privilege is being challenged just a tiny bit, and he's like, it's over for us. Well, I guess we could save that for the open panel, but GSU Gambit, what are your thoughts? And we'll go down the line, everyone, for 1 minute introductions. Go ahead.
My bad. Yeah, so there are good parts of cancel culture. We definitely want to be socially progressive and we want to, make sure we're making everybody feel comfortable, blah, blah, blah. But there's some disastrous parts of it too. And I think Joe Rogan, as he's in two situations. One is the white straight man you talked about. He's also a comedian. We can see that pretty much all comedians are at the consensus at this point that woke culture has been pretty disgusting and has hurt comedy. And we have people, luckily, like Dave Chappelle dropping what was it? Sticks and Stones. We have Bill Bill dropping a paper trail. Joe Rogan has dropped stuff. Andrew Schultz, and they're all like challenging the parts of cancel culture that's attempting to take us all out. So yeah, I think as a comedian, there's a lot of disastrous stuff. I think him as a white person, I think there's some credence. We have to admit that what we're trying to do right now is make the world more equitable for all people, and to do that, there's going to be challenges that we have to levy against people that belong to his demographic. So I think that the claims are very warranted. I'm pretty sure we'll talk more in the open, so I'm gonna try to be brief right now.
Okay. Sure. We were just saying like the very warranted, like his claims were make sense just for
Yes,
cancel culture,
absolutely.
or for a wider white
Absolutely.
man, the the
Hold on, wait, what?
or the state of white men in
I'm
general.
sorry.
Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
The state of white men in general.
Yeah.
I'm speaking. I you can say that in some ways, but I'm speaking more to the demographic that he belongs to, and that includes like socioeconomic status too. But yeah, I mean, in some ways, all white people too, but mostly him as a comedian and him as a person and his socioeconomic status.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Chris.
Yeah. Even though I believe his like he's being pretty hyperbolic. It is warranted. We are coming for them. They are being silenced to a point because they have like white men in general have been talking over people for a long ass time. Um, to be honest, and like now we're in the position where like some people are like well in that demographic are being able to face consequences that they normally wouldn't be able to like they normally wouldn't have faced for some of the shitty behavior that they like participated in, right? So like now they're feeling like before we used to be able to just like act a fucking fool, be assholes to whoever we wanted to be, and now you can face some consequences to that. Now they like feels like that now they feel like that's just being like the silence in them. If you feel like they're silencing you, like if you're not able to be an asshole to as many people as you used to be, maybe I guess sure. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to a better place with this. Yes, some people can be excessive with the way especially the way comedians are scolded, like for their jokes and things like that. I think it can go a little too far, but I think that's not the majority of cases. I don't think that happens to such a degree to like the entire comedy industry is just like falling off a cliff. It's not happening. Um, Demographic shift, the culture shifts, and now things that used to be acceptable are just no longer acceptable. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go to Elvity.
Well, I think that his claim is an exaggeration. because silencing people is preventing them for speaking up when they want to, which is not the case. What's happening is that there are certain things that used to be okay that are not okay anymore because people are just not taking it. And yeah, the same case with comedian. It is true that especially with woke culture, people have get offended and are really sensitive about certain things. But um, most of the time, when they're attacking people, it's because there are certain things that should not have been said. So yeah, he is exaggerating.
Yeah, so much. Baja.
So, I feel like anybody that's like in Joe Rogan's position probably isn't actually any kind of real victim of the things that he talks about as far as being silenced. I mean, that's the obvious meme with him having like a mega huge podcast that he got a mega huge deal for on Spotify. So, like, I think when you're like someone like Joe Rogan and you just talk to like all these types of people that bring this topic on, it kind of probably colors your view of the situation. Even if it is based in some kind of like real fear. I do think it like addresses a accurate problem with cancel culture, especially when we go to like really like online only like places where people will impugn someone just for being white. I mean, you see it happen. It does happen. The scale of it probably not as great as people want to make it out to be. I think this will always be a problem if there's any kind of like reckoning for a group of people who have like a demographic majority in any kind of area, and there's like some kind of like reckoning or some kind of reconciliation for what happens to people that live in these spaces that don't fit that demographic. So, is it talking about a real thing? Yes. Is it definitely overblown and way out of proportion compared to what these people want to make it out to be? Also true. And that's how I feel.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Fanatic.
Wow, I think it's absolutely insane that a person with literally one of the largest platforms in existence right now, he has literally the single highest, single most highly rated platform, period, for a podcast. There is none greater. One of the largest YouTube followings by way of his platforms. The fact that this white guy on that platform is voicing the idea that white people are being silenced is so insane to me. Now, if you want to look for the fringes of anything, like I guess I can make the statement that this country is lynching black people by the minute, right? And I guess I can look for some cherry-picked examples of it happening, but that's ridiculous. When you want to express a problem, typically you want to say that it's a prevailing problem or something somewhat pervasive, but this is not something that's really common. It's not something in real life. The white voices are the most elevated. We see it still happening in the industries of music. We see it still happening with social commentary. They're still the voices of power. They're literally controlling the narrative whenever it comes to most. They're the owners of the news. They literally are the most prominent when it comes to judges. They're the most in representation when it comes to the Senate. Like, what the hell are we talking about? There's no silencing of white voices. It's that white voices have systemically silenced these other voices, and now we finally have some voices and platforms that are outside of their control and their sphere of influence, and it feels uncomfortable. That's what's actually happened. Freak out of here, white people being canceled. Get out of here with that. It's nonsense.
Okay, open panel.
Like Fnatic's 100% right. Even the ones who do get canceled, you still can't you still hear about them all this damn time. So it's like you have to be someone super small to be canceled to the point where like nobody hears from you again because we barely knew you before anyway, right? But all these other voices, all these other like white dudes in this industry who's been like, oh, you tried to cancel, they're still here, right? They're still like, especially comedians, they're still doing shows and things like that. Like you're not being silenced. You now are facing consequences for the things you say. So now you feel like you have to hold off. You have to think about what you say before you just like spew it out. And like I guess for them that feels like silencing. If they can't because they can't say whatever they want to say now. They can't put these things out in the world like they used to. Like now they feel like that it's a part of their speech that's being silenced. Well, you just have to think, and like you have to really think that if you have something to say and there's going to be some real consequences to it, you better really believe in that thing you're going to say. So yeah.
And honest to God, how many specials has everyone seen where it's like comedians striking back at cancel culture? Like I love like a lot of comedians. Like I used to watch like shows all the time and stuff like that. But like I can see like it has to be a perpetuating cycle because this is a new cash cow now. to just be anti-cancel culture, and you can make like however many fucking specials that you can just off of that fact. So in some ways, I feel like these people don't even really want it to go away. In a way, it's just a way to get people on the opposite side to just keep buying your shit, and you just get easy material. You're just gonna make fun of like the like woke white person or the woke person, whoever it is, on the other side of the aisle. Like that's all it is.
You don't think they're doing this because there's a force that they're opposing? You think they just created this out of thin air and they started going at woke culture? Or do you think woke culture was at a point where it was attacking them, so they started to rail back?
I think it definitely attacks some of them. However, I think it's a lot of attacking windmills here. I see it like, and it's a similar trend. Maybe not specifically comedians in this sense, but I see a trend where it's like people get really mad at like effectively nobodies like online. People get really mad at effectively people that have very little influence or power. Maybe even if they do have influence and power, it's among their own circles, and they'll talk shit on you behind the screen, saying that you're like a piece of shit for saying this, that, and the third, like whatever it is. And there are definitely some people that like, actually, you know what? I don't know. Actually, has anyone really been canceled that's a comedian that hasn't come back?
There
from
have.
it?
So how do you
Well, I mean, come back is
how do
a
you feel
relative term,
about
right? But
Kevin
like they can
Hart?
get to the point where they're not like really platformed on specific like avenues that are like pretty productive for them. But I agree with everything that you're saying. I think this really is a conversation of privilege because it's this, man. You talk about we talk about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and like how you have all these basic needs you get to, and then once you get those things, then you kind of start fixating on the next thing, on the next thing, and the next thing until you get to the self-actualization phase, right? Like the fact that these people's largest complaint very often is things like such as I on Twitter they told me they didn't care about my opinion, right? Because I remember when it was like kind of trending when people were saying didn't ask, don't care, plus you're white. And I was like, yeah, that's gross. Like it sounds funny the first time you encounter it, but it's like
No,
in
it's pretty
reality, this
funny when
internet
it's
is
accurate.
nasty.
It's pretty funny when it's accurate. Come
It
on,
shouldn't
when
be
that
accurate.
shit
It should
hits,
never
it
be accurate.
So Baha, you don't think all of
Listen,
the
I think it
people that
sounds
do
funny, but
that?
it should never be like the plus your white portion of that literally doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't. Like I think it's really stupid, and I think we shouldn't like be at a point of just completely labeling someone just because like, oh, you're Caucasian,
Yeah.
so whatever. But the problem is when you're in a privileged position, then this feels some type of way. Like if you've been given an advantage, and then someone points out like, hey, this is not fair, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna do that. During that moment, it feels bad. It feels like, wow, they're giving the attention to this person now, and that doesn't feel good because you're used to having that power. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where no, let me not meme. Okay, let's not meme. Where someone is giving you attention. No, let's not. But someone's giving you attention, and then they start giving that attention to someone else, right? When that happens in those moments, it feels awful. Like, no, I want this. Any loss feels bad, even for things you didn't want. When you had a toy that you wanted to play with, and someone else wanted to play with it, and it's like, I'm gonna keep playing with it because they want to play with it, and then someone's like, no, it's their turn. You didn't even feel like playing with it anymore, but it feels bad because it's a loss. With the privilege that white people have, the fact that more attention is now finally being given to people that aren't them, it feels like a loss. Like, wait a minute. No. Me, I'm at the center of this. You're used to it. Sometimes, like when you've seen those videos, last example, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. You've seen those examples of those really insanely spoiled kids who are like used to like $3,000 a month allowances. And then their parents are like, you're being cut off. We're not giving you more than $100. And they are devastated. And it's like privilege, anytime any form of privilege is restricted, it immediately feels like a loss. And we're just witnessing that through these, and this is pure evidence of their privilege.
GSU, you're going to try and say something?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask Baha. Baha, so you said in your opening, like you just talked about how like these people are nobodies, but you talked about in your opening how online these nobodies actually matter when these people that you're calling nobodies all get into a group and they start to try to email and try to stop your ads and all this other stuff. Like these things have real like material effects to these people, and you don't think that's the case? You don't think that's the part of woke culture that a lot of people are railing against?
I think that part's definitely toxic, and I think we're separating like two ideas here because I definitely don't think that these people matter in a lot of ways. But for the people like Joe Rogan, so let me explain. For the people like Joe Rogan, even the woke culture thing that they're attacking clearly doesn't matter. If we look at like just what's going on in his life. He got a multi-million-dollar deal.
Wait,
He has his platform still. Let me just separate some ideas out. So for when people and most comedians, I feel like, that are super big and have bounced back in a way to define bounce back. You're not kicked out of every single avenue of work. You have some forms of revenue you can still go to. These people really haven't felt the like downstream effects of being canceled to the point that you should complain about it all the time. Now, for other people that like exist as like smaller individuals online, I'm sure those online people matter and can affect you. Like for people that are like posters on Twitter, like people that like have accounts on Twitter that like talk and do discourse and whatnot, if you can get canceled, you can get affected by these online people. But for the people that are like making all this money off of having specials and talking like ad nauseum about cancel culture, I really don't think they're feeling the effects of cancel culture that bad.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, hey, if you have money, just deal with it. Do you think Kevin Hart felt some type of way when he couldn't do the Grammys when that was one of his life goals? You don't think he felt some type of way? You think, oh, well, that's cool. It doesn't matter. He's rich, so whatever the hell we do to these people, it doesn't matter. That's how you feel?
I think that's probably upsetting as like a principled person. Like, you know, if you want to like really do this thing and you're blocked off through cancel culture, I do think that's toxic. I think that's fucked up. One, I also don't think that's like, if that's canceling, if that's like the extent of canceling, then yeah, I'll say that's fucked up. I feel like, but I feel like canceling should.
That's not.
What is your?
Wait, he was set to host the Grammys and he got canceled from hosting the Grammys. That's not canceled.
Well, that's not.
I mean, it is being canceled, I guess, but like
It's
when we talk
totally
about
canceled, of course,
yeah,
exactly how that happened.
And
that's
isn't there more
happened.
story to that?
No, he could have done it. He could have done it. You remember, like the first time, like they asked him to apologize about the comment. He refused to do so because he had already done it before. And I understand that part. But like the option, like the option to do that, and he did eventually apologize too, right? And he just didn't take the job after that, right? But I understand his feelings after that point. Like, you make me go through this again, even though I made the apology. I think it was kind of a publicity stunt with them, with the Grammys, and him like bringing that up. But at the same time, he wasn't completely canceled from it. He could have done it, but there was circumstances around it that were like, I don't even know if I was in his position, I'd take it out of there.
No, they told him to. No, he apologized after that situation. They told him to apologize, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to." Then everything happened later on, just because he felt like it. He apologized and blah blah blah. But that's not related to the subject at hand, right?
If he apologized earlier when they asked him to, would he have gotten the job? That's what I can't remember.
Yeah,
I'm just asking. Is that like a yes or no?
That's what's stupid about this.
Well, but see, that's what I mean. What I'm saying, it's not getting canceled in the same way I feel like we should be talking about like toxic cancel culture. That's like taking away someone's livelihood, doing like the awards and not being able to do it because you refuse to apologize.
That's not even taking away his livelihood. That's not even taking away his livelihood. He didn't get to do one job because he didn't want to fucking apologize for like his gay bashing comments before. Like fuck him.
Wait, what you're saying is,
no, hold on.
What you're saying is because he has more resources than I do.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't recognize you. Sorry, my bad.
Fanatic.
Yeah. So
you don't have it muted, do you? Because we need everyone to be able to hear you. Because it's gonna be a pain in my ass. I need people to hear each other. Like, let's not do that again.
That was my first slip up. It won't happen again. I promise.
All right. In the last one, no, seriously, I can't deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. GSU.
It'll be the last. I promise. It won't happen. It's the first time.
Yes.
Yeah. So what y'all are saying is because he has a lot of resources and you can't effectively like completely like if they came for Joe Rogan, yeah, they could hurt him, but he's still gonna have a livelihood because he's rich as fuck. But what you're saying is all of the damage that can be done to these people doesn't matter because they effectively can't be taken out of a complete job. Like, that's silly. Like, and there are people like y'all are naming that we won't know the names of that are having their entire career done and they may have problems feeding their family. But what you're saying is basically if you reach a certain socioeconomic status, whatever the hell the dumb woke culture does to them, it's okay because they didn't effectively dismantle them completely.
It's not getting canceled.
How does that make sense?
It's not getting canceled. That's what it is. Sorry, go ahead, Baha.
Yeah. If he was being stopped from doing something more than the Grammy Awards, which is controlled by the Grammy committee or whoever. And they had this stipulation that said you have to apologize for this. If you want to work in this space, you have to apologize for this, and we'll let you go. I really do not think that is as. I don't think I'm like just glaring over a wrong. That's kind of just like I feel like the terms of agreement. If you want to do this thing, if you want to work for this organization, if people were stopping him from able to make any kind of specials, like I mean, if they're like messaging Netflix saying don't fund the specials, they're just going around doing things that are outside of his influence, but have nothing to do with any kind of third party. Like I feel like that I would care about more. This
saying
kind
exactly
of
what
is
I
just
said.
I think what should be considered is the reason why he was canceled. Like, do you think that comedians should be put under such scrutiny as far as what they can even say? Because they're a comedian. Their job is to go outside the norm, say things that are going to shock people. Should comedians really be put under this microscope of, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that, when that's
here's
their
the
job?
trick: be funny, nigga. Like just be funny, and no one is gonna have a problem with it. That's
why
really
the nigga
just
fills
that's a cheat code.
He fills stadiums because he's funny.
Yeah, and
That's why he fills
exactly.
stadiums.
Wait, what?
That's what I'm saying.
Sometimes,
He's funny because that's why he fills stadiums.
yes,
Like to act
but
like
like
the
not
nigga's not
every
funny is
comment.
hilarious.
Yeah,
I
not
never
every
said he wasn't
comment you're
funny.
gonna
I'm
make
just
is gonna be funny, right? Like that comp they
Yeah,
gave
I
him as the
think you
comment he
can.
made wasn't funny. Sorry, go ahead, go
Albany,
ahead.
please.
Yeah, you can definitely make a funny joke without having to make homophobic comments. Like the reason why he didn't go to the Grammy is because, well, he made a homophobic tweet. He was asked to apologize. He refused, and he just didn't do the Grammy. But nonetheless, he wasn't canceled. He still has deals. He still has movies coming out. Like just last November, he has his Netflix special that came out. So he wasn't canceled for that. He did just one organization that was like, I'm not gonna work for you because you did this and this and this and this. And it's a private organization. They have the right to decide what type of people they want to represent them. So yeah, he wasn't canceled.
Yeah,
I
and
feel
and
like y'all
People
are
remember,
that are
setting up.
canceled,
and to be fair to on top of these points, to be fair, the Twitter post wasn't a joke. The thing that he sent that caused all this, that wasn't a joke.
it wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a
What
joke.
y'all
You
is
can be funny
y'all
What
without
did he
having
say?
to say
y'all are bas-
homophobic or racist shit.
y'all are basically setting an unrealistic bar so y'all point sounds better, but it's silly. What you're saying is he has all of this influence. It is effectively impossible to completely shun him from society. Because of that, he's not canceled. So because he's still making money, what happened isn't bad, and this isn't woke culture, and this like all of these claims that all of these people make all the time are just
You're gonna
bullshit.
You're
face
That's
straw manning
Okay,
us.
just to make
consequences.
sure that we're
silly.
on the same
Yeah.
line, what do you define as canceled? Like to like what is the amount
I think
of
so.
not
Yeah,
working you define as canceled?
I can explain. So if somebody is a dumb fuck on Twitter and they go back 10 years to find a comment, and then they're emailing advertisers and organizations to try and get somebody canceled for that thing, and it effectively makes the organization posture, that's form of cancellation. It's not a total cancellation. I'm not, y'all are defining cancellation as the inability to make money. Like that, like
Yeah.
what is that?
Come on.
no.
That's
I'm
silly.
going a step further too. Like I can agree that everything you just said, like going back 10 years and finding tweets is cringe as fuck. I can agree, but like that doesn't change that the effective status of like Kevin Hart is not one of someone who's canceled, right? Like
Yes.
you can, and I know you understand that because you completely understand that he fills stadiums. You completely understand that he does specials. Like he clearly hasn't lost that much influence. If you're counting the Grammys thing as like losing influence, I guess you're technically right, but in the spirit of it, I don't think like you're canceled if that's the negative externality that came from you doing like cringe tweets like 10 years ago. Like, you get what I'm saying here? Like, I get that it's a bad thing. It is totally not like affecting the grand total of his like influence as a comedian, as a person, even. He's still doing movies, still doing specials. Life is still moving forward. I don't think the Twitter people have that much power at the end of the day for these
Yeah.
people. That's my larger point. It's not like they're doing shit to Joe Rogan or Kevin Hart. They're making like little fucking headlines that actually probably give them a bump in sales in other places. But like beyond that, like I'm trying to find out who really got their shit canceled, like to the point where I have to look at them and say, you're not at the same status as that you were before.
The bar
A
that you're
good
setting for
example of
cancel.
people that got canceled and that literally don't have a career anymore are Ellen DeGeneres, Bill Cosby, or R. Kelly, because those people like they're banned from the industry. Ellen just closed her show a couple months ago. Like, you know that after that she won't have anything. Kevin Hart is still making deals. He's still able to put himself out there. So no, he's not canceled. And being canceled would be if
Ellen
he was in a
DeGeneres.
situation where his brand and his reputation, his financial situation, and the social status that he has was totally annihilated by the public, which is not the case. So no,
Ellen
he's
is
not
gonna be
canceled.
I think it's really
Ellen is
hard.
gonna be a
cancel
millionaire for the rest of our lives. This is silly.
I don't know about
Ellen will be a
Ellen.
millionaire.
I don't know about
Try to
Ellen,
like-
but she actually,
From the
Like,
Her show
industry,
just
yes.
closed.
yeah, but
Like,
yeah,
the
Yeah,
industry's
so the
over.
Ellen
But-
DeGeneres show is
yeah, I know,
canceled.
but yeah, it's literally canceled. She ended her show, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but that, I mean, canceled, and like the TV show is canceled, but like it's like
Yeah.
they didn't. No one ended it unless I have old information.
Yeah,
No
what
one
you're saying.
ended it, but
So
her.
what you're saying, Prime, is exactly what you're making the claim that she's gonna be able to go do something else and make money, so she's not
No,
canceled.
no,
This is
no,
silly.
no. You're not misunderstanding me. Is that unless I'm missing something about like the circumstances of her, of the show ending?
She got canceled because of like her ratings plummeted
Yeah.
because of the things that happened and all
So-
of that.
and
And
now
they
so
her
weren't
show is
getting
gone.
did it happen-
sponsorship anymore.
Did it happen because sponsorships left and then
The
ratings
sponsorships left,
dropped?
the rating dropped.
Okay,
No,
well then,
Some producers left the show and didn't want to work anymore.
Yes.
And
Okay.
there are also a lot of artists that didn't want to be on her platform
Okay.
anymore.
okay,
So yeah.
okay, never mind
Yeah.
then.
But she's a millionaire.
yeah.
She's gonna be a millionaire for the rest of our lives. So the claim that Prime and other people have to make now is she wasn't canceled.
No.
That
I
doesn't
No,
wasn't
she's
saying
still
that.
canceled. That
she's
doesn't.
gonna
Her
go
status
down
as a
someone
celebrity is
who doesn't
done.
have a career anymore.
Yeah.
So like, okay, yes, you have money, you can cry in your
She's gonna
Lambo,
have a
that's
career.
great. But it doesn't change the fact that her reputation is gone.
Yeah.
Like R. Kelly, for example, he's going to be known for the rest of his life as a pedophile. And you're gonna Google his
should
name,
be.
his Wikipedia page is gonna say that he's a pedophile. So yeah, sometimes yes,
It's
you
not-
can use
it's
the
not
stack of money
canceled.
that you have to like whip your tears, but it doesn't change the fact that your reputation is just wrecked.
Wait, R. Kelly committed like child pedophilia. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah, I
cancellation.
think-
That's just people holding him responsible for like
So-
a crime that he committed against.
We're
another
talking
human.
past each other. If that's how you understand. Like I 100%
It was
understand
a
what you're saying, Gambit, but like that is
comparison.
it's being canceled for a good reason. It's being canceled like through the legal system through being an actual piece of shit human. But like that's still being canceled. right?
and
I'm not saying it has to be the same for Kevin Hart, but that is in effect cancellation.
and Baja Blast Freeze, to your point, you remember there was a movement that preceded R. Kelly finally getting, well, sort of getting what's coming to him. He's got a lot more. this man needs
Convicted,
to get.
yeah.
But it was a movement before. It was like two women who was like who started like the stop playing R. Kelly. I don't know. There was like a name for it, right? Like a hashtag, right? They're trying to get radio stations to stop playing his music, because he was raping the kids and all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? But like that happened at the grassroots up, right? So all the things that Gambit was talking about, people calling and like getting like the random people calling it and trying to get people to stop working with you. That's what they did, right? And for good reason, because no one was fucking listening to them, because he was having sex with black girls and like abusing black women, and no one fucking cared about that shit, right? So like they actually did that from the grassroots up. That's an example. That's the perfect example of cancel culture actually doing it. And then later on, the justice system got involved when that 14-year-old like filmed herself with him, right? So that's how that happened. But he was being canceled beforehand by a grassroots movement. That's it. That's it working exactly how it should work. Are we not on agreement here?
Not really. but-
You don't. Hold on. You don't
I think
agree.
that-
Hold on. We got to dig in
No,
this one. We don't agree that R. Kelly, right, for doing all the things for abusing those girls
I don't agree with
and
your
abusing
grassroots
those.
claim.
I'm sorry.
No, wait. I remember I was the person that said that. Hey, this guy was canceled because of the child
Okay.
molestation, child pedophilia. So I agree with that.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that it wasn't this grassroots movement
was.
thingy.
There
that
really-
you're
it
giving
literally
you're giving
was.
far too much power to that.
No,
You're
it
giving way too
literally
much power
was.
to
They
that.
literally have been working on that for years. These women and
Yes,
started a
but what
movement
happened?
behind it.
What happened is him him being charged is what led to his downfall. Him going through that criminal case is what led to his downfall. It wasn't the people. It wasn't
No,
the
it was a long process.
People still listen to his music today. Like,
that's because
like, it wasn't the grass.
Because cancellation is involved not every single person in the planet turning away from him, right? Like what? Then no one's been canceled.
No, but he was before his trial started. What year was that? Was it 2013? I don't know. Before his trial started, he was still regular degular R. Kelly, and it was disgusting because I hate R. Kelly. So I like he was still doing concerts everywhere and everything. Like he wasn't canceled to the point where he is now before his trial started.
Okay, I don't know.
And I guess that's the point of contention, right? Because Prime's point is that this grassroots movement, regardless of whether you think it's effective or not, did exist, and we can't make any claims to whether or not they affected like everything. Like we can make a direct chain from them to like the legal system. However, I think it does show that like if people are trying and they're bringing attention to it, I don't think that's like just to be played off and say, oh, that's not grassroots, that's not cancel culture. I mean, that's part of it, right? And the filming, I mean, of course, like the legal stuff is way more influential in getting the ball rolling on canceling someone like R. Kelly, but like I don't think we should take it away from the women like started that movement. If they're really working years on this, I don't think that's like very fair to the movement.
So I was wrong too. It was 2008 when he got acquitted. That was when everything started going downhill, when that case got acquitted.
So like we're moving away from the original topic, which is Joe Rogan, and I wanted to focus in on white men, and them like rich white men. To be very clear, extraordinarily rich white men crying about being quote unquote canceled, and that being the big problem, right? Joe Rogan, like I think Mr. Fanatic talked about, has like the most massive platform in media right now, right? It's huge. His reach is huge, and it's like, well, yeah, white men aren't going to be able to go outside anymore. Not going to be able to say anything. The fuck? Who? You? Right? And he'll say And him and other fucking quote unquote comedians, right, will go on fucking CNN to say that. It's like, I'm being canceled. I'm being silenced. Like the whining, the bitching, the moaning from these people, right? It's so pathetic. I'd say it's funny, but the problem is that people take them seriously, right? Well, because they have money.
That's the problem. Because the whining from these individuals, because it's coming from powerful individuals, then people are bound to respond to that because they're used to having to respond to these kind of
anti-racism and CRT are two different things. You think anti-racism is good?
No, we heard you. Did you hear GSU? He asked you a question.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't. Hold on.
Yeah.
What was the question?
I don't think anti-racism is good.
Oh my god, what the fuck, guys! I don't know what's going on. Seriously, this is annoying.
No, I just unmuted him. No, I unmuted him. I didn't know.
You were both muted each other. Wonderful, great. So you were saying
I
unmuted
him.
So you CRT. You were saying CRT is what? GSU.
Oh, I was asking you that, Prime.
Okay.
I didn't know he was talking.
Okay.
I'll let him talk.
All right.
He hasn't talked in a while. Let him talk.
God, I hate this so much.
That's not me. Prime. I told you that what happened.
Fanatic.
I unmuted him. That was him.
Fanatic, go.
I didn't do that.
Finish, please.
Thank you. My point was, Jesus, whatever. Anyway, I definitely said that. I don't remember now. Oh, I was saying, yeah, we're used to the idea of like we're not used to hearing like cries of like lack of power from these specific individuals because they've always been the ones at the center of power in this country. So then, like, yeah, it is something that people do respond to. It's disgusting because it's inaccurate. Like the idea that these people are being canceled again. These are in specific platforms, in private platforms like Twitter, where it's like, okay, yes, you can be canceled in Twitter. Matthew McConaughey. I remember when they quote unquote wanted to cancel Matthew McConaughey because he made the statement that he felt like we should give Donald Trump a chance. How did that pan out? Nigga's still working. I heard Kevin Spacey recently got offers for a job after he got like outed as freaking molesting a kid. Like what the freak are we talking about? This cancel culture stuff isn't real. And the vast majority of cases, it doesn't have a humongous imprint on most of these people's lives. Yet Kevin Hart, like he said himself, I've been canceled, 3 or 4 times? Like, it wasn't just the Oscar. There had been other times where they wanted to cancel him. And each time he's like, yeah, nigga, I'm still going to sell humongously successful movies. I think the movies are, yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. This is all black everything. I get to be honest with black folks. The movies are trash. He makes
They're trash. They're trash.
Yeah, they're always awful. They're always awful. Don't watch them. But he makes a lot of money on them. I think they're really designed for other audiences, and they appreciate them. So good, more, give that nigga some money. But in reality, it depends on how loosely you want to define cancel culture, right? Like, what exactly is canceling? And canceling, in my opinion, I think it sounds like I would imagine all of us would agree. Canceling is when it's the attempt at silencing and causing to lose large opportunities and be in the public
Reputational
eye.
damage.
Right, reputational debt, all of those things would be canceling, right? But this kind of thing has existed forever. It's just that nowadays that these voices of cancellation happen to be on Twitter, because this thing is not like this is brand new. You think O.J. Simpson was getting all sorts of great endorsement deals after he beat his trial? No, it was still problematic, and hell, they even literally tried him later on. So the idea that people are being canceled, this isn't anything new. It's just now we're being hypersensitive to it because now their voices are being silenced in some of the most large platforms because we have equal footing. You see, you can't use your privilege on Twitter to demand other people shut up. We don't even know what race you are in most of these cases. And so now some of the other people are feeling silence. One last thing. I remember back in it was 2007, they did a survey of college-aged white children at a Methodist university, and they felt that they were the most oppressed demographic on the country, right? So this is not new stuff. It's just now this guy has a big platform, so we have to address it because he's powerful and he's talking about white people being canceled. This is crazy. Come on.
You
I
bring up
think we
something.
should also
I was gonna say, I feel like you brought up something. I kind of feel like because they aren't framing it as like us as powerful white men are being silenced. They're framing it as all white men are being silenced. Right? They're just trying to garner support. Right? They're trying to signal to that base and get more people into that content. So they can all sit there and agree and circle jerk. Like, yeah, we're all being silenced, right? And the audience builds and builds. Why they're still making millions and their influence is still reaching out to the world, right? It's just it's mostly a lie, but it's just like a game that they're playing. Like it's no different than a lot of the alt writers who were talking about how feminism was coming for all men, and they were gaining support off of that. Right? They gained so much influence and power off of that.
That's why it's a dog whistle.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of what Chris said earlier. Those groups are trying. I mean, Joe Rogan is trying to cater to the idea of a certain demographic in his audience. Like what he said, the fact that he thinks that white men are being silenced. There's some people in his audience, and most of the time they're younger, who truly believe that they're being silenced, and that's the reason why we have groups like Proud Boys. We have here in Canada, we have a group that's starting to gain attraction that's called Make Canada Great Again. It's also a bunch of white young men in their late teens and early 20s who thinks that Canada is being attacked, and a bunch of other white supremacist, quote unquote, white right groups that are appearing left and right. And it's kind of scary when you think about it, because you try to understand what type of narrative and what is the type of media that those people consume, that they start to put themselves in this sphere of victimhood, and they start to believe that they're truly being attacked because they can't say certain things anymore.
I think a lot of this has to do with individuals feeling that whenever they speak on certain topics that may be more sensitive, maybe something related to minorities, even stuff like unions, they may feel like, oh, you're right, you're white, you're privileged. Oh, you've had this handed to you. Oh, you've achieved this in life. Well, this is because you're privileged, and they feel like, okay, everything that I've worked for, everything that I'm trying to speak about is important to me. It's important to people around me, that I don't have a voice in this because everyone's telling me, oh, I don't have a voice in this because I'm white, I'm privileged, I've done this, I've done that. So I think that's sort of what you're trying to get at.
But it's not true, because if you're in these leftist spaces, you really there's all sorts of white people who are still in this thing, right? Who are allies, who still get to speak all they want. The problem is when somebody who makes these claims, that type of person, what they're doing is they're coming in, they're inserting themselves, and they're making themselves the main focus. And when that happens, especially when you're talking about minority issues, and that one white dude is complaining about all his issues and all the things that's affecting him, and completely ignoring the topic of the minority issues that everyone's talking about, of course they're going to say all right, you're white, you're privileged, and you're sucking up all the air in the room. So like, bro, you got to calm down. You got to stop. You got to let everyone else speak, because like that's usually what happens when it comes to these spaces. We've seen it so many times, and that's the perspective they're getting, because they're so like they're so egotistical. Their heads are so big, like they don't even realize that when they're coming to certain spaces and like that involves a certain group, and they want to insert them. You can insert yourself, right? Join in the conversation, join in the topic, but don't make it all about you. And it's a lot of times what they want to do is make it all about them and their problems. And like, no, that's not the time and the place for it. So of course you're gonna run into that every time you go into that space and try to like project those things.
I gotta push back on that a little, only because I think I'm like 55-45 on this. Like I agree with you 55%, but I see like a lot of fuck shit online where it's like there are like examples and so many examples, and it's kind of weird to me where people really do just ostracize like white people. And I still think the don't care didn't ask plus your white meme is funny as fuck, because most
I
of the
do
time
too.
it's accurate. However, the spirit of it, when people like are actually ostracizing white people for existing, and like you'll see it on huge Twitter threads. Like this is like this could be a whole other topic, Prime, by the way. That segregation TikTok or whatever that's like going around. Like when you see like these people like talking to each other on Twitter, like it's largely like minorities and black people, they really are just dogging white people. And if someone is white and they see that, I can see how they feel completely like a victim in that sense. It's kind of fucked up. I probably wouldn't type in there, but I see like white people type in there asking like how they can help and whatnot, and they're kind of told to like essentially be like subservient in a lot of ways. I mean, maybe not those exact words, but like in effect, they're taught to be, like silent allies are just supposed to like, cheer on the minorities at the end. And I do think like if you're white and you hang around normal fucking people, you're probably going to be fine associating with like leftist causes and stuff. I don't think most people are going to tell you to shut up because you're white. But I do think there's a growing sector of that on the internet where you are like, you're kind of like people are bigoted towards you just for being white. I think it's purely online. I don't think people do this in real life, but it does
That's
exist.
exactly the problem. But that's the problem, Baha. Like that, like the issue is that in most of these cases, like these things do happen in like really fringe groups online. But we all know how harmful it is when you try to like label something based off of the fringe cases. This isn't happening in real life. Now, if Joe Rogan was to specify on Twitter, like, yeah, it's really crazy the way people are, then I'd be like, okay, for sure. But I think it's irrational to try to make broader claims, which it sounds like he was making. He wasn't making specific claims about online spaces, and that's what it's limited to. If I was to go and be like, yo, man, the country is becoming incredibly country is becoming incredibly Republican, right? And the reason why I thought that is because freaking I was spending all my time on Parlor. Do you understand how like foolish that is? He's extrapolating so freaking far. This isn't real life.
And that's why I said 55-45, because here's a question, Fanatic. Do you think it's growing at all? Because I still think that like it definitely is an online thing. I do see like I don't know how old everyone is. I be hanging around young people and I see like a lot. I feel like I see a different side of Twitter than most people that hang on politics Twitter do, and I see a lot of these big ass posts, like a couple tens of thousands of likes and shit like that. And I understand that is the Twitter sphere, like, but I think a lot of people are convinced Twitter is life, no matter what side you're on. First of all, I do think a lot of people think that way. So in effect, I do think it's like growing when I see like these increased numbers, and for these people that
Online.
live online, it kind of does matter more, right?
Growing
But
online? That's
Yeah,
most of the
it's
people
yeah,
online
not
are
just
real life.
white anyway. Like most of the people online are white anyway, and most of those likes are probably white people liking those comments because like they want to
exactly.
see the white person in the comments cry because like they pushed themselves into the conversation when they didn't need to, right? You can say it's growing, but it's really not. Like I don't deal with that because I stay away from the type of stuff when it comes to Twitter. Like it gets annoying seeing like endless posts of people knowing each other constantly. Like I take the prime approach. I'm barely on Twitter at all, and like I try to post, but I just don't because all it is shit talk. Twitter is just all shit talk at this point. So I can't. I don't really take it seriously. And like when I'm interacting in like spaces, I'm really talking with people, like on Twitch here or in other places, even in real life. There's plenty of white people in these spaces. There's an endless amount of them. They are participating. It was just that a lot of people, a lot of some of these white people are just better at it than some, right? They know when like, all right, what I might say here might be incredibly offensive. Let me think about it, and try to act in a different way. Like, you know what I mean? Or some people just burst in and just say just like the dumbest shit like immediately and expect to be like patted on the back and everybody to like, you know, just like to praise you for it. What was that? Like, remember we had a open panel where a guy just comes out and said like, I'm not attracted to black people. All right, just like the first comment, like, of course, like you're not gonna be taken seriously and you're gonna be like shit on the whole time when like that's how you come into a space and like when you're talking about like black issues, right? So we just they just have you have to be careful, think about what you're saying, and think about the like the community you're coming into, the space you're coming into, and try to be like modest and like understanding. That's all it takes.
I acknowledge it, but I just think we had to rein in the places where it is on the fringes. I don't like seeing that because it is growing. Like depending on your like
And
definition of growing, it is a thing that I think we should just be wary of. 'Cause I don't like that people come up with that impression when I do see real examples of it. And Twitter is made up of
yeah,
individuals. If an individual face some of this stuff, I would understand why they feel like a victim.
dog,
Well, Baja bless.
anti-racism is so stupid and it's gaining so much steam. And I think what a lot of us do is we say, hey, we don't agree with it. So we ignore like the real impacts that it's socially having in our country. And it's a lot of idiots out there that go by this anti-racism mantra, and a lot of them are saying, hey, white people shouldn't be allowed to talk and all this other stuff. So a lot of the things I think y'all are just blowing off is just not in resemblance with reality. And then Chris keeps going to a situation where white people are only talking when they're talking about black issues. You tried to pigeonhole this conversation to, yeah, if you go into a conversation where people talking about black issues, don't bring up white issues, when the reality of the context is far bigger than that. It's not just people going into a conversation where they're talking about black issues and they start talking about their own. Some of these people have their own platforms, like Joe Rogan, and they talk about their own issues. So to try to pigeonhole it to this small example of stupid shit that happens on Twitch is hilarious.
Yeah, hon. So,
Yeah, didn't do
but,
that.
You literally referenced that 5 times and you circled it
oh,
like 3 or 4 times in a row.
Chris, you can respond.
No, like it's in like I
You
said,
did.
deal with real life spaces like that, right? Where you come like you're talking about an issue, right? And it's not that the white person is just like talking in general. It's like the way you interact, the way you participate in the
Yes.
conversation.
I'm saying that
Like it,
small use case that you're naming is not as pervasive as the nonsense and like anti-racism that happens. I'm saying that you want to
uh,
speak about this specific one small example, and then you want to say the entire movement of anti-racism and everything else is happening is just like it is irrelevant, and you just want to talk about this one small point
it may not be
over and over and over
irrelevant,
and over.
right? It may exist, but it's not like what you really think is doing so much harm like to a
You don't
person
think
when they come
Robin
into an all
DiAngelo
black.
and you don't think Robin DiAngelo and Ibram X. Kennedy and Ta-Nehisi Coates and all these people are doing like disastrous things to our culture?
I think they say some idiotic things, yes,
You
but
don't
like
think there's a lot
they
of people
if
that follow them and
if
think
you're
that their
taking those three
message should be
people
bigger?
as if you taking those three
No, it's
people as
not.
a
It's more
blanket,
than those 3 people. I'm just
even
naming
still, if you're
the
taking the
figureheads. You want me to
if you're
name
naming
everybody? Really? You want me to Google and name everybody? Or you want me to give
it,
examples to
it
try to have the
doesn't
conversation?
matter. That's not the entirety of black people in this country,
I
right?
didn't say it was
And
the
like, of
entirety of
course,
black people. What is the
there's gonna be some militant people in those spaces, right? There's gonna be some people who are gonna say some dumb things, and they may have like some influence. But like at the same time, if you don't want to deal with that type of interaction when it comes to like if you're trying to participate in the chat, the speak, right? Maybe don't go to that place because they're on some bullshit. So you go to somewhere, you try to find another community or a group of people who are having these conversations with like other like minorities and try to see if you can like have a better
Okay,
conversation there.
so
But like
this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, right? Like, so, first of all, this thing worrying about uh, in certain spaces, right? In certain spaces, like maybe dedicated to like to civil rights, right, or to the struggle, that white people don't get a chance to be front and center, right? Yeah, that's the thing that happens. That's the thing that happens, right? Now, because some people take it to an extreme and say like, oh yeah, you just can't talk at all. Yeah, some people can do that. Yeah, whatever. But like, whatever. It's like it's unimportant, right? Unimportant. But like, just like if I was, there was some, like for instance, like the Stop Asian Hate movement that's happening right now, right? If I were to go to one of their meetings, right, I go to a group dedicated to that, right? Like, do my opinions get to be front and center about what's going on in the Asian community? No. I'm there for support. I'm there to listen to what's going on, what's happening, right? Like, if they say, hey, you know, a lot of African Americans have been attacking us on the streets. That's true. Yeah, that happened. What am I supposed to say to that? But I'm here for the support. I'm here for support. And you can be, if you're angry about black people there in that space, you actually can be, right? It's okay. This is your space, and you can talk about the issues that are happening to you, right? And so, yeah, white people don't get to be in charge, and then they start complaining and bitching about it, right? And I'm surprised you're giving them cover here. This sounds like giving them cover for their nonsense bullshit victimhoods. Like what? No. Like in those spaces, in those specific spaces, yeah. Black people happen to be front and center because those are issues affecting black people, right? For trans spaces, those are spaces where trans voices should be front and center.
You're doing what Chris did.
Okay.
You're doing what Chris did. You're talking about going to an Asian hate group and talking about black issues. You're talking about going to a transsexual community and talking. You literally said
no. What I said.
Literally,
let me explain what I said.
Asian hate movement. Go to their meetings.
So I said go to their meetings, right? I didn't say raise even black issues. I'm talking about me deciding where the movement should go or what should be the priorities or anything like that, right? Talking about trans issues when I'm not a trans individual instead of going there for support, not raising black issues. I didn't say that.
No, this is my point.
Okay.
You and Cosmo are talking about people who go into a environment that's concerted to talk about specific things, right? We're what Joe Rogan is talking about in this is like regular life. They're not talking about a certain like group that's talking about this and then they go there and they feel discouraged. They're talking about like in America and like I understand. I talk about black issues probably more than everybody, right? I'm not saying that there aren't black issues and they aren't very, very important and we shouldn't be looking for solutions. But I'm saying things like anti-racism and all this other nonsense that's happening with woke culture is absolutely disastrous. It's absolutely stupid.
Okay, hold on. All right.
Can
I do my thing? Can I get introduced and respond to GSU?
Okay,
I got some.
Let me introduce
I got some field opinions
people. Before I didn't get to introduce Anima. Anima, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Azzy is here. You know, she's about to get wild. And then we have Matt Latin. So Matt Latin, please.
So like I understand that where Joe Rogan's coming from, right? Because like you know he had like the status quo of what he was able to say previously, and then what he's able to say now, and he's like lamenting the fact that he can't behave in a way that he's like comfortable with. I get that, but then to equate that with why like anti-racism and woke culture is a problem seems kind of problematic in its own right. I want to separate the two issues completely. Like I think we want to focus on like Joe Rogan's commentary and focus specifically on why we can understand where Joe Rogan's coming from, while at the same time pointing out the problems that Joe Rogan stands. So like literally for the last 20 years, we've gotten better about talking about these types of issues in a safer way, in a communal way, right? Like, so we can actually say, hey, I feel victimized, and you can say that publicly, and you're not going to get like immediately attacked as hard as you would say 20 years ago, right? And people are, I'm going to use something that's going to the Asian thing. Actually, we can look at. I don't know if anybody heard about what happened in the late night show with James Corden, where like there's Asian folks who are feeling like victimized because their foods were being used in this like disgusting foods segment of the show, right? So like basically people were being asked to eat like chicken feet. They weren't cooked properly, and it's disgusting. It made Asian food look bad. Asians said, "Hey, I don't actually like this. You're attacking my culture." And then James Corden like took that down. Like this type of behavior is like kind of new as far as we are changing how we treat others because we're trying to like sort of see their perspective, right? So Joe Rogan's taking this and saying, I don't feel comfortable making the same kinds of jokes that I used to make, which makes sense because if he tries to make some of those jokes, they were actually offensive. Like there are people who are hurt by his jokes. So on the one hand, I understand where he's coming from because, yeah, he can't make the same jokes he used to make. But on the other hand, I think it's actually kind of important that he realizes that this isn't something to lament, but to understand that he doesn't want to actually step on the toes of other cultures, right? I mean, was that too long-winded? Was that like?
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Okay.
to me?
Yeah.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, it's fine. No. I was just gonna say, Baja. We can hear you clicking sometimes, so mute yourself. Go ahead, GSU. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, I feel like maybe a lot of this was just at the beginning, but yeah, I feel like I think does every I don't even want to ask that, but yeah, I feel like inside of comedy things are changing. That's why we talked about like Dave Chappelle and Sticks and Stones and how people are railing against that. Yeah, I think
Right, and like a lot of those Dave Chappelle skits wouldn't make it either nowadays, right? Like,
no, they will. He dropped that like a year ago or 2 years ago, and it was amazing. I loved it. But yeah.
Well, no, so like not the Sticks and Stones stuff. I mean, like I'm talking about like 2004 Chappelle Show skit that like didn't quite like when he was what was it, like the black white supremacist, right?
I think
like, do you think you pull that off right now?
I think Dave Chappelle is on a level, and this is where people like misconstrue things. I think Dave Chappelle is on a level where he can do wherever the hell he wants. Right. And some
sure,
people,
but let's say
some people look at that as the cancellation attempts that are gonna come mean nothing because he's gonna exist despite it. But those things do actually mean something. Just because somebody overcomes the nonsense that happens doesn't mean that like there wasn't a real danger that they could have lost everything.
Yeah, cancellation attempt. Okay.
Well, the cancellation attempts from like 2004 are different from like the cancellation attempts now. So like, let's say there was like a younger version of Dave Chappelle who's trying to make like some of the jokes without his status that he has now.
Dave Chappelle came to Atlanta, Georgia, and dropped the LGBT skit. He can do whatever the hell he wants. Period.
Well, I'm talking about anybody who doesn't have his gravitas, though. Like Dave Chappelle has gravitas. He's Dave Chappelle. But I'm saying like any comedian who tried to pull the same things that Dave Chappelle does, can they get away with it? Even if they're like,
I thought you said Dave Chappelle couldn't. I didn't know you were talking about other people.
Yeah, I'm talking about anybody else.
My bad.
We
misunderstood.
Can we agree that there's good reasons and bad reasons to be canceled? At least that.
Well,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
I feel like, Mad Lad, your question was being avoided. But the answer to the question is absolutely a person of lower stature would get to a point where they would be canceled, right? We can't look at someone like Dave Chappelle as like the example of, or we can't use him as the barometer for whether or not cancel culture exists, because clearly he is so powerful, so successful at this point, he is literally insulated from all of the things that typically would happen with cancel culture. So whereas like before, he literally at one point said like on the David Letterman interview, I'm a huge fan of him. He said on that interview that he believed like his career was over at one point, but he continued to do the grind and do shows and stuff on the low, not using any of the other media accolades and things like that. And then he revolutionized comedy because he took two of his recorded specials that he recorded literally every special himself, refused to allow people in there with cell phones. So then that means now I control the narrative. It's my show. So now I get to go ahead and market an old show that I did a while ago to Netflix and say, hey, buy my specials and I'll give you one new one, right? But that was power. The fact that he could do that. The fact that he literally went back and got his old show back that was completely like he had been screwed from season 3, if you remember. He now owns the rights to the Chappelle Show. That's power. That's influence. We saw them try to cancel him when he did his latest special. They tried to. If you look on Rotten Tomato, critic reviews of it were like literally zero. They rated it as low as they possibly could do, but audience retention and audience approval was literally the highest it could possibly be. They tried to cancel him there, saying, oh, this is awful, it's outdated, it's not funny, and everyone else is like, nigga, I don't know what the hell you talking about, this is gold. So he's insulated, but I promise you, let some young, new, up-and-coming person do it, and guaranteed all of their endorsements are gone. They won't have any access towards growing a fan base. If Dave Chappelle didn't already have literally the single most successful sketch show of all time, then they would have successfully canceled him, and they've tried to do so. It's just he's insulated and too powerful, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, so like I said, Matt Lab, I didn't understand that was the question that you asked me. I thought you were talking.
Fine.
I thought you specifically said Dave Chappelle couldn't do his show.
Like Dave Chappelle would have
to
do something like insane to get canceled, right?
So,
like he'd have to do something.
So I agree with you.
I want to learn Elvity, and before that, I just want to get an answer from you because you didn't do it before. GSU, Are there good reasons and bad reasons to cancel people?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
I
just
hate
wanted
R.
that.
Kelly.
Okay, okay, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure that we at least had
There
that.
you go.
Nice. Okay, all right, fair enough.
R. Kelly, Michael Jackson. There's a long list of people that I hate. Yeah,
Albany.
and it sucks because I feel like, hey, I hate them, so it's okay. That sucks.
Albany.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wouldn't go as far as to say that Dave Chappelle is uncancelable, because to me, the reason why he's still here is because, well, he hasn't done anything that would make his audience and the people that watch him and follow him turn their back. For example, you have Harvey Weinstein, who at some point used to be the most powerful man in Hollywood. Like every single star, he was the one man behind them, but he still fell because the accusations were so grave that he couldn't keep his job anymore. So I think for Dave Chappelle, like he just hasn't done anything that was like
Yeah, if he does something criminal, we agree. We agree.
criminal enough. Like if
Yeah.
he was like a pedophile or a rapist, well, he would get canceled definitely 100%.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't
thought
think
we were,
anybody is cancel proof, no matter who it is.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about through like the way that other comedians get attacked. Yeah, if he commits a crime, he's done. Yeah, for sure. He
Yeah,
should be.
he's
Yeah, but
done.
I have a question. So it's like, so do you see what I was trying to get at before, where it's like, if you're at a certain status, like how I was trying to say with Joe Rogan and these other people that complain about it all day, if you're at a certain level, like it doesn't really affect anything. Like we brought up the Dave Chappelle example, we brought up the Kevin Hart example. Like these are people that like probably get like some of the more spicy headlines regarding their cancellation that continue to just overcome the odds. And it seems to be that way just because, you know, it's not going to stop anyone's personal audience. A cancellation attempt is not going to stop anyone's personal audience from engaging with their content. So that's why I'm trying to say these cancellations aren't like bad. I'm sure there are like bad actions and there are people that are doing this that are very cringe and very weird. Excuse me. But like, do you see what I mean though? It's not like these people are in danger of almost anything. Right. Not financially, not status wise. They're not really losing anything. In fact, I think in some ways they gained some cred for this.
Wait, but there are people who are uncancelable. Donald Trump. The media tried to cancel him in every way possible. Twitter literally banned him.
They tried to cancel him.
Facebook banned him. YouTube was banning his content. All of the most powerful industries in the country were banning him. Yet he's still there at CPAC. Yet he still has an insane following. Yet he still might end up trying to run in 2024. Well, he still had the Republicans protecting him from the freaking obvious lawsuit that should have happened from his impeachment. So like the idea is that there's quote unquote canceling, but there is a point where you become so insulated and so powerful that they can't.
Think Donald Trump is actually.
That's exactly my point.
As someone, I don't think Donald Trump actually counts as someone who's like so insulated he can't be canceled. I think that there's a lot of powerful people who are still using his brand and trying to get as much as they can out of it before it starts going sour. Like you look at the Republicans and how they're defending him in Congress, etc. They're like hoping to get some midterm action out of him, maybe some 2024 stuff. And as soon as the milk goes sour and he's not generating as many votes as he would otherwise be, they're gonna just like cut him loose probably. Like they were happy to turn it back on him.
Also, that apparently he's facing a 15-year tax scheme lawsuit. So yeah, okay, perhaps he survived that, but that doesn't mean that
he'll survive anything that's legal. I mean, I think he'll survive anything
that's illegal.
Well, to Fanatic's point, though, if he gets canceled now, it's because he is wanting to overextend his welcome. Like at this point, if he's dodged the committee, if he's dodged all these other things, like he doesn't have to keep engaging. He could disengage and probably get away with it. But he continues to send out his fuck ass emails. He continues to try and influence the Republican Party. He continues to try and get donor money. Like he's doing all these things. Like if he gets caught at this point, he is fucking himself over. He already got him and his boys pardoned. Like he's good. Mm-hmm. He could leave. Like if he wants to overextend,
good. But like
if he dropped off the face of the earth, do you think anything would happen?
That's the same thing that R. Kelly did.
I mean, I think the thing is with Donald Trump is that like I think he needs this politics stuff. Like I don't think he just did this because he wanted to become a politician randomly. Like just looking at like the tax return stuff and everything else. Like I think he was using this as like a revenue generating venture. I think he was trying. I mean, This is speculation. This is all hypothesis. People can challenge me on this, and I'll say, yeah, maybe you're right. But I think he was trying to build like a media company out of like losing the 2016 election, and then he won, and he was like, "Oh, all right, well, I guess president now." It's my hypothesis on this. And I think he's trying to get as much leverage and power and wealth as he can out of his current position as like, you know, the sort of Republican sweetheart, except that he like yells at them all the time for things. And I think there's going to be some huge clash coming between the Republican Party and what Trump is and his supporters. I mean, the clashing is happening, but I think there's going to be a big something probably around after 2022 that will kind of resolve that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it was just a major ploy, because at some point, let's not forget that he was backed up a little bit by the Russians, so they believed that he was a credible candidate. So yeah, I think he knew what he was doing, and he got to where he wanted to, and yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm actually really wondering about that because
I'm trying to like. I don't want to go on the whole tangent on Donald Trump. And, yeah. So
right. So
I do
Joe
want to say
Rogan.
one. I do want to tie him to this conversation though, and I don't like this, and this is why I want the whole anti-racism thing and all of that stuff to go away. There are people who support Donald Trump solely because he's fighting against some of this nonsense. Like, there are people that are pure racists, right? They're racist every day. They wake up and they're going to vote for Donald Trump no matter what. But a lot of the people that I talk to, they say stupid stuff like, well, I like how he talks freely and he doesn't mind if he's going to get in trouble. Like, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, dumbasses are born everywhere. Yeah, dumbasses.
No, there are even black
dumbass
people
black people. Yeah, I agree.
100%. No, wait. You can say that those people are dumb, but all I'm saying is I'm trying to tie this. I'm tying this back to the conversation. I don't care. Like, I think they're dumb too. If you support Donald Trump, you're stupid. But period. But like, he is sort of a figure against this culture, and a lot of people support him.
Yeah,
for that
so
reason,
but I'm saying, I'm saying that they're idiots. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. But yeah, they're idiots, and just because those idiots happen to support him for those reasons doesn't mean we have to take their opinions into account. Because guess what? Again, they're fucking morons. So what the fuck? Who
I mean, the thing is, stupid people influence a lot. Like, it doesn't matter how stupid they are. If there's enough people who believe in something,
are there enough?
I think so. I mean, like a quarter of the American public.
No.
Yeah, but he's currently being dropped slowly by the Republican Party. So
no. Yeah. I mean, specifically the enough people that fall into his the category that he's drawing there.
The category he's drawing are like three of my aunts.
Yeah,
like I have three aunts who are Trump supporters for reasons that GSU just described.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm literally writing a whole like essay, and I'm sending it to him like 2 weeks saying, hey, this is what Donald Trump is, and we're going to see how that goes. But the point is that, no, I've seen this exact behavior pattern all over the place. I've got a bunch of parents that I talk to who are Trump supporters, who support Trump because he says it like it is, or he's fighting this woke culture stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think GSU is actually like completely right here. Like, half the population is in that.
No, not half the population. That's not true.
Half the Trump supporting population. Half the Trump.
Okay, but Madline.
Okay, but what is the what percentage do they represent in the whole U.S. population?
I mean, guessing like an eighth, probably something like that. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, so they're a minority then.
I mean,
you don't have to
but that like
have the take that he had, right?
Right, like you don't actually need to have like a small, like an eighth of the population supporting Trump for reasons that aren't like, you know, whatever. Like, just they don't like woke culture is like enough to actually be a significant problem in like trying to bring this country together. Like, these people, this eighth of the population, is literally driving a wedge between the Republican and Democratic parties.
Sorry, hold on. Okay, so first of all, I don't believe, first of all, these people are a significant portion of the population. One, the ones that even gettable by Democrat. But let's say like all your wishes came true, right? And woke culture, whatever the fuck you even define that as, right, magically disappears tomorrow. Do those people come to a Democratic camp, right? Are those people like, oh yeah, like, oh, that was the one thing? And so
That's a
now
weird
the
thing.
Democrats,
Kinda.
right?
That's a
So
large bar.
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree
listen,
with Prime.
hold
The
on.
thing is,
Wait,
extremists just
That's
tend
not
to
a
be
large.
super loud, so that's why we hear them more. But
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that there are more people would support Donald Trump. Like he's literally being dropped by his own party right now, and they're trying to make a transition because they realize that since the thing that happened on the 6th of January, they're starting to realize that Donald Trump is not a credible candidate anymore. Like he lost most of his social media following, and he's not someone that can represent them
yeah,
at least anywhere.
no, yeah. And I
Yeah,
just
like
So
wanted to.
yeah, he's
I
being
just
dropped, and honestly,
I actually was part of that population. From 2016 to 2019, I supported Donald Trump. But then I saw how he handled COVID, the insurrection, the voting scandal, all these different things. I'm like, okay. But really, my whole reason I started supporting him was, okay, listen, there's all these random Twitter fucks going off online about stuff doesn't matter, it's woke culture. This is someone who's actually going to speak against that. It goes against that and says, hey, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, whether you like it or not. And I think, I think that's just
do you
how a lot of our people in my situation
do
feel.
you think your objections, looking back, were coherent? This is where the next thing I was going to say, right? Like with hindsight now, looking back as to why you supported him, right? Do you think that was a coherent and good reason to support a person like Donald Trump?
So during that time, the economy was really, really good. Minorities had the lowest unemployment, pretty much ever. Housing rates were going up, 401ks. Pretty much like for minorities, it was going very well. He said a few things that were pretty offensive, but I focused more on actions and like what he actually done for like housing rates. Like I focus on words. And
Wait,
so
but all that
they're
stuff
not.
was done by Obama. That wasn't Trump. He
Man, say
inherited.
that.
He clearly inherited Obama's economy. We can literally look at graphs and see in the latter half of Obama's presidency, we could see all these numbers going up. We were seeing record lows for freaking black unemployment during that time. Like Donald Trump, I mean, it just inherited that. The thing that you would have to be trying to tie this to would be Donald Trump's tax plan, where he takes all of this money, like he gives all of these tax benefits to these crazy wealthy people in trickle down economics, which we know isn't effective. You're trying to associate that with like lower black unemployment? Come on.
So I agree with
brother.
Fanatic like almost entirely. There was one statistic that Donald Trump actually had good numbers on that I couldn't figure out why, but there was actually a real change in unemployment rate in like 2019 that could be credited to Trump. I have to figure out what the precise statistic is so I can like link it. But there was one thing that Donald Trump had going for him. But like I agree with Fanatic. Generally speaking, like Obama kind of did most of that.
Just like Obama inherited Bush's economy, right? Being the disaster that it was at the end, right?
He did. He fixed it.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I agree.
It's like a 3-year, it's a 3-year delay usually, something like that. Like there's a crazy delay before you can actually look at a president's policies and then be like, this is what happened. Like, for example, I actually credit George H.W. Bush for sort of saving our economy in the early 90s because he raised taxes after he said, no, read my lips, no new taxes. And then he lost the election, and then Clinton actually was able to take advantage of George H.W. Bush's raising of the taxes in the early 90s. And then Clinton also had the internet boom, which, we don't have to get into that either.
But how is his, I mean, what's his point?
So yeah, I want to get Anima. I want Anima to be able to, respond to all that. Go ahead.
I think that, like a lot of my reasoning for, I wasn't too big into politics, but I just understood, really it was based on ignorance. Not understanding, hey, the trends that are going are from the Obama era, and this is, but like I guess Trump would always emphasize that, hey, I'm doing this. I got black unemployment to this level. I've done this for the black community, and the stats showed it was true. So I just took that at face value, and so I think that's how a lot of our people like me we felt during that time.
Yeah,
I think that's super relevant because I think the power that we're talking about here is the ability to draw people in that like don't really care too much about politics into the culture war thing. As in, I'm not talking directly to you, I just mean like in general, like that rhetoric, that style of like approach to like the culture war to woke culture like woke culture and stuff is specifically like intended, maybe not intended, but the effect was drawing people into politics that had no fucking clue about like anything else. They don't really care either. They just want to see shit work. Like most people that just live every day, they just want to see shit work, and they want to fight against the things that they can see are obviously bad, which is, in their minds, like the impression of woke people taking over the discourse and stopping you from saying whatever you want to say. That is the most powerful feature of Trump's rhetoric.
There was a
Really
huge
quickly,
issue with that.
Can I say one thing
There
real
was,
quick to Animal? This thing he said earlier. I just want to say, first off, I 100% appreciate you for being honest in that way, and I totally get where that comes from. I think all of us at certain ages, when we first come into like information about certain things, we have views, we have ideas about like the way certain politicians are. Donald Trump 100% did exactly what you said. He 100% claimed everything. It's, oh, this is my economy. I have this. I've done this. I've done that. Most of these things literally had nothing to do with him. There was literally zero ties to the policy. In the same way that you believed about Trump, I believed about Clinton. Like, this dude was amazing. He ran our country the best. He lowered the federal budget deficit and all this stuff that I believed in. And later on, you discover, oh, this dude's an actual monster. Get him out of here, him and his wife.
Yeah.
But so I just want to say I respect all that. Chris, go ahead. But that was a great
Yeah.
response.
I was gonna say like a lot of these false narratives, especially around the time like the 2014, 2016 like time, like a lot of these things were false narratives that were pushed, and people like had their followings that just trusted every word of these people, right? And so they just took that and went. And what you start to realize like feminist like ideas and movements started to get more popular because like people took these no-name individuals and blew up their videos and like just used them as like fodder to like farm like content off of, right? Like so unironically, if it wasn't for the alt-right movement, like Anita Sarkeesian wouldn't be as famous or popular as she is now, right? Like there like wouldn't be that, but because they like these people took these things, they blew them up in order to farm this content. Then this narrative starts to go around that all this like this woke culture is like isn't getting into everything, like it's ruining everything. But they're the one putting the megaphone to these small it's like these small situations or these small people who are just making their video essays and things like that. They're claiming that they have all this influence, all these white people are being silenced, but you'd have never known that. Nobody knew who I especially didn't know who Anita Sarkeesian was around
Nobody knows
2012.
who that person is. That person is not famous. Whoever your name, they're not. They're
They
still
were at one
relevant.
point in time, though. They were.
They were really
That's
and
undeniable.
yes, and like I
That's
didn't
an
know who they
actual
were, and I
canceling. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
like,
yeah,
No,
I
I'm just saying he's quoting this person as some famous person.
he was
That's not.
okay.
yeah, I'm
And
I'm saying
she
that
was
she
for,
was
for Chris's point. She was
and she was
absolutely.
canceled. Yeah, but sorry, Chris, finish your point.
Yeah, she's still around, but like you like you don't know these people. I didn't know. I got sucked into the whole like anti woke culture thing, right? That's because I didn't know these things. Like I come on YouTube and there's videos like feminist cringe compilation or something like that, right? You just run into these things, and because you that's the first thing you run into, or the whatever content creator is the first person you run into to bring up these issues with you, you automatically assume that's what they're saying is true. Whatever statistics or like data they bring up, you just automatically believe and don't go look into for a couple of years because you take them at like their word for it, right? And you just get sucked into that narrative, and you don't think to question that narrative. And that's the same thing that's going on with this whole like this white men being like silenced. All you're getting is like this narrative of like these powerful people saying, "Oh, we're being silenced. All of us white people are being silenced. You should be afraid." But in their everyday life, they're not experiencing that, right? They just like got this implanted in their head, like, oh no, everybody wants to silence me now because of these people. And because you put that in their head, you get them to follow you. You get those people to spread that word. You get them to spread that, right? And then now you have like people radicalized or like just sucked into a narrative that's just completely false and unrealistic. And it just like perpetuates. Like
Well,
that's
it's
how
like
you
a
get
lens,
white
right?
people sucked into it. Yeah.
Well, it's like a lens. Like when you look at the world in a variety of lenses, you get a pretty good picture of what the world actually is. If you look at the world in like one specific lens, like in this case, white victimhood, you're going to look for those things, and you're not going to look for all the privileges that may come with being a part of the majority,
Right.
right? So you have to like shuffle your lens and then see if you're being real or not. And that's the thing that Joe Rogan, yeah, I definitely agree. Like Joe Rogan is definitely doing that. And I think Joe Rogan is actually pulling together, not like him specifically, but like there's this sort of pooling of individuals. And they're not all white, which is interesting, actually. I've actually encountered a lot of minority individuals who are in this camp as well, right? Who are saying the same sorts of things. And I think really what it comes down to is half opportunism. Like there's folks who are kind of trying to use this movement to like get votes or whatever. But I think the other half is actually like some sense of irresponsibility on the side of the left and academia. Like I'm gonna get a lot of pushback for this. I know I'm gonna get a lot of pushback for this, and I'm sorry. But I do think that using terms like white rage or white privilege to describe something that could be like you could use things like majority rage or majority privilege to describe this type of thing actually kind of feeds into this dialogue, right? Like I think you could actually no, everybody's gonna shake their heads at me. I know everybody hates me for it. I'm
No,
sorry.
you got one
But-
supporter at least.
I
I
was
agree
gonna-
100%.
I was gonna. You're not wrong. The thing is, like, if we just named it minority privilege, I mean, majority privilege, right? There's gonna be a whole bunch of like white people who are gonna be like that. You're just like saying,
No, I
like,
hate you.
talk about white people.
Yeah.
know
Like
you
they're
hate
gonna
me.
change it around.
I hate him, bro.
Yeah.
They're
Keep
gonna,
going.
Yeah,
they're
and it's
gonna,
so
they're gonna make it
sensitive.
exaggerated.
To you.
It's so
like,
sensitive. We gotta
I try-
protect your fragility.
Yeah.
call a
No, we
cat.
can't use the phrase
I mean,
white.
I-
Get
yes.
out of here.
We have
Here,
to.
well, the issue is like in
that's the
everyday.
point.
Have you people ever seen the like people that will use these terms against like other individuals and they're talking to? That's what I'm talking about. Like that is the poison. Academia should stay in academia because, like, you know, we do it for everything else. We do it for almost literally everything else. Everything that requires a lot of nuance, a lot of like study to talk about, is usually kept to those areas. Politics is really spicy, so people like to bring shit up that makes them seem right. And I think talking about things in this way for like so long and letting just normal people just use these terms that they don't really understand is really damaging to the discourse. I think people that don't know what they're talking about should shut the fuck up. And if you're trying to convince somebody, you would never say to their face that they're like white in their privilege, and you're just gonna like say that with no explanation, no backstory. But that's what people do. And there's nothing you can say to change my mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, how does that stop them from actually talking? Right? Like they're gonna take the secret talk and they're gonna use it in the
Yes,
most
I
abusive
would.
manner possible.
I do it all the
Right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like we look at like the subculture that we don't like, we take the language from that subculture and we look at it in the worst possible way. And that's what conservatives are doing. They're looking at academic subculture, they're looking at the terminology used to define things. And this is all decided. We decide what we call everything. And they're taking those terms. I know everybody hates me.
No.
I'm
Here's the
sorry.
problem. Here's
But-
the problem with this, right? Here's the problem with this argument. It's and this is the oh boy. And we're not doing this. We're not. So shut up, Gambit. Shut up, Fanatic. Right? Both of you. Right? Don't do it. ACAB, right? So,
God, no, don't do
no,
it.
No. We aren't doing it. We aren't doing it. We aren't doing it. But that's my point. Is that no, we aren't doing it. What I'm saying is that like the right will use anything. Well, you're pretending like the other side is operating in good faith. We all know that they're not, right? So it doesn't matter if you have this perfectly crafted, a well-honed like a focus group tested message, right? They're just gonna shit on it. They're like, "Oh, this is the worst thing in the world, right?
Use
This is the
BLM.
fall of the
BLM.
America." Yeah, BLM, Black Lives. There you go. Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it literally doesn't
Don't use
matter.
ACAB,
So
use
ignore
BLM.
that part. So that part actually, so that's the nonsense point. Like, who cares, right? That being said, I will say one thing.
Yeah.
I say that I don't actually like the term privilege, right? Because it assumes that white people are getting a bonus just for being white. It's rather than it's more like a minority, like a detriment, right, or something like that, right? Like minorities are losing something rather than white people, especially like not like a person who isn't rich, who isn't wealthy, than them gaining something, right? They can go out throughout life maybe without being harassed by officers, but not necessarily being treated like like put the roses thrown at their feet, So like that, I would give you that one. But even then, right? Even then, it doesn't matter because the other side is operating in complete bad faith. So fuck them. That's why I'm not worried about what they have to say.
I'm not worried about the people who are actually operating in bad faith. Like, obviously, fuck them, right? And they are. I understand there's a large segment of the population that's literally taking everything and twisting it as much as they can, right? They've been doing it for like the last 20 years. Fine. But there are people in the middle who are going in the wrong direction because we're saying fuck them to the bad faith folks. They're recruiting off of this. There's plenty of people who are perfectly normal, perfectly rational. They voted for Obama in 2012, who ended up going down the Trump train because fuck them. That's literally what happened. They just saw this woke culture stuff and they thought to themselves, man, this is really, really bad. They bought into it and they went in that direction. I think we could actually find a way of moderating the language in such a manner where it's still accurate. I mean, I know you're not gonna agree with me. I'm
So
sorry.
basically, we have
correct.
to
Keep
sugarcoat
going.
everything so that people don't get offended.
Yeah. Did you hear what
What?
she said?
We didn't hear you. Can you say it
Say it
again?
again, please, Elvity.
Oh no, I was just saying. So basically, we have to sugarcoat everything so that people don't get offended,
I mean, isn't that what we're
mean
asking?
and use like
politically
because
correctness?
it's the term white that we shouldn't be using, or
I mean,
like I don't get it.
what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at
Those
the
Caucasians, man.
those Caucasians. No, like so I'm trying to do.
Something
I'm trying to
about
look
them
at
white
these
people,
actual
bro.
topics.
Them Caucasians, man.
Right?
Ruining everything.
Caucasian privilege.
This
No,
is
it's like-
terrible. This is real
I didn't
bad.
say it. I didn't say it.
This is real bad. This is so bad.
I agree. I think instead of
Those
saying it,
Caucasoids.
we should be saying
Stop
pale
it.
privilege.
Stop it.
Yeah.
We can't say pale privilege either? Okay.
So, I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
Yo.
Don't get mad at me. Let's go to
Caucasian
Chris.
privilege.
Those-
Okay.
Prime, I
Those
did originally.
Viking-
I did
Viking
originally
mongers, bro.
disagree. I did originally disagree with what you said, but I think it's like conceptualizing a glass half full or half empty, right? When you were like, "Yo, it's like black degradation, not white privilege." I still prefer white privilege, but I understand what you can conceptualize it that way, and I think that's fair. My knee jerk reaction was like, "What the hell is Prime saying?" But yeah.
Chris.
I have a question.
Oh, no, let's
sorry.
Chris. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, like my problem is even if we adjust these terms that we're using, the track we're gonna go down is just like complete erasure of a lot of these terms, right? They don't want just for these not to be used in the wrong context or just to be like used all like willy nilly all over the place. They want them not to exist, period, right? They want CRT not to exist, period. Right? They want to erase these things, and if we come up with something new to try to talk about these things, no matter how sugar-coated it is or how nice we try to put the language,
Exactly.
they're
actually
they're gonna
agree.
hop into it.
I
and
actually
they're
have an
gonna try to-
example.
Go
I
ahead.
have an
No, they
example
attack Black
of
Lives
a term that was changed that is a lot more effective now than it was before. So there was global warming before, and then it was switched to climate change, and like half the right wing arguments went away. Like literally, the one thing that these
No.
I'm not saying all of them.
Heavily.
No,
I mean,
it's
it's
two different phenomenon. They didn't change. Oh my God, they didn't change global warming for climate change. There are two different phenomenon that are part of the same biological process. I know this. I am a STEM major, so global warming is like the name indicates. It's when temperatures go up, and climate change is the change in climate. It's two different things.
So there's two different
And
things,
yes,
but we
sometimes
treat
people
them
use them
as the same.
interchangeably, but
Right,
no.
because that's what language is. Language is how we use it, not necessarily what the official definition is, right? So what I'm saying is that that term has been global warming is not talked about in progressive circles anymore, and climate change is, and it's
Because
actually selling better.
We're,
So I'm
we
just
are
saying you
talking
can use
about
better terms. I'm
Because
saying you can
talking about
change
climate-
better terms and sell the message better. That's all I'm saying.
And,
Like, you
and I
can find
think
a
the
better way
point,
of telling
yeah.
this.
And the point
But
is
how do
that,
you-
like,
how
for
do you-
political purposes, the term was changed. I think we can all agree. I know you guys all agree with that. When we talk, no one is saying the same arguments we're having about global warming, like in like CNN or on the news or whatever in articles. People talk about climate change, and it sounds better when I know they're talking about the same thing. They may be talking about like the scientific definitions in some places, but for the average person, global warming and climate change have just like switched as terms politically. You can be completely correct scientifically, but politically and how it's marketed to people, these terms have changed. Like it's undeniable.
But I will say, but I want, but to
Um,
back up Chris's point and Elvity's point, Black Lives Matter became Black Lives Matter more than white people, right? So I agree with Prime in that there are some people on the other side that are just bad faith and they just don't want there to be views espoused that are progressive towards minorities and things like that. So there is a level of that at play as well that we have to be aware of.
And I agree with that. And I wouldn't just say cater to everyone who wants to change every single term. But like, let's go look at the defund police thing.
Oh no, let's
So,
not.
like,
Oh my God, let's not.
because
We're
it's
gonna take too
stupid.
long. No. Just that we're gonna take too
Wait,
long.
we
Guys,
don't
do you
have
wanna-
to.
So why do we
Here's a
even
better
bring up?
example. Can I give
Why
one
we
really
even?
quickly?
Okay, sure.
Because
Go
Mad
ahead.
Lad, a better example would be something like racism. Do you remember back in the day? I remember in the 90s. In the 90s, if you accuse someone of racism, then they started using the phrase, you're pulling the race card. And the race card phrase was used to try to demonize or dismiss a claim of racism by just saying, oh, you're just pulling this thing that makes me out to be the bad guy. So they even demonized something which we now have all of the evidence in the world. Donald Trump was president to demonstrate that racism has been a very effective thing in this country. There's not been some crazy amelioration or attenuance. Like, it's still here, it's still present, it's still effective. But every time you would use it back then, it was you're pulling the race card.
Right,
So
and I agree
they
with you
will
completely.
find a way to dismiss and dismantle literally any phrase we come up with, even things that are as accurate and non-coded and objective as racism. So thinking that
right,
we're going to
so-
try to come up with something to describe something complex,
I'm not
that the
trying
phrasing
to
is going to be
get-
perfect, is just
Exactly.
I'm
wrong.
not trying to get 100% here. Like when you say
Not being
they,
prescriptive right now.
you're combining like all the different groups that are detractors, right? I'm saying we can get fewer detractors by finding a more sugar-coated, snowflakey way of
Why didn't
describing
that
the
work for
term.
racism then? Then why didn't that
It
work
did
for
work for
racism?
racism. Where are we right
What are you
now, right?
talking about? People are literally okay. Well, I guess you're just going to
It's
ignore everything I just
better.
said. That's fine.
No, I mean, no, I
Mad
agree
lads
with
in the
you.
chess community.
Uh-huh. So okay,
Yes,
look,
we all the white boys.
we gotta start moving on to the next
There's
topic. But
plenty of
just before then, I did want to tackle what you said, Mad Lad. That oh, the climate change thing. I don't think it was because of a change in term. That the change in term is the thing that made the
Yeah.
shift. It was literally the change, the overwhelming science, the evidence throughout our world, like made manifest, right?
Yeah.
All those things, and then you see Republican talking points, Republican falling back, right? Like, oh, before, like, it just wasn't a thing, right? It's imaginary, you're making it up. Well, then, it might be happening, right? But it's not man-made because, you know, the climate's always changing, right? You know, and then they were continuously pushing back their points, right? Falling back and back because it's made manifest, right? We got hundreds of people dying in the West right now because of these fucking freak heat waves, right? We have these once in a century storms that happen every 2 fucking years, right? Like, I don't think it's
I'm just saying, like,
it was,
okay.
I mean, like, I think, yes,
Every
it's slightly better
conservative
messaging.
I
I'll
would
give you
argue with
that.
us.
But, like, I don't think that it was just, oh, we call it climate change now, and now our arguments are falling apart. No, and again, bad
No.
faith, so it doesn't even make a difference.
No, bad faith is some of them. The thing is, like, all the conservatives I've argued with over the years. So, like, back in 2009, I had like conservatives that I would just engage it with and like try to figure out what made them tick, right? And maybe it's just like personal experience doesn't mean everything, right? Like, it's just like, you know, my personal experience with this. But all of them were fine with climate change defining the environment stuff and not global warming. The second I started using the term climate change, they were more in agreement with me. And I mean, I'm not saying that my personal experience with this is
Reflects.
necessarily the same thing as like everything that happened across the country. Prime, I think you're probably right. That's a big part of it too. It's just like we're seeing the actual effects and thinking, oh man, this is bad. Oh man, this is bad. Oh man, this is bad. I agree with you. But I also think that the messaging got better. And I think those two things combined are improving our policy. As far as the racism thing and the race card thing, I agree that the race card thing back in the 90s was being used and was being abused. And it was making it harder to actually express what was happening. And then what ended up happening is that those individuals that were using that term kind of just aged out, is what's going on. Like the generation following those who are using that term frequently are realizing that no, this is actually racist, and the culture is changing and progressive, getting more progressive and improving. That's all I mean. I don't mean to say that the race card folks lost the battle because they got exactly what they wanted until the next generation started realizing that they're full of shit, right? Like that's all I'm saying.
So
I don't know, because those race card people turned into the CRT people. And I was just reading something by this a social media post by the Black PhDs in Texas. Someone was saying critical race theory is a combination of 21 things: equity, cultural, implicit and unconscious bias, social justice or restorative justice, systematic, white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy, white culture, white prejudice, like anything related to any type of race, any type of system analysis, any type of, matter of fact, here we go, power structures or racial hierarchies, anything related to race, which was created by European functions for European countries for economic function is now being flipped on its head, and you can't talk about it anymore, because if you teach our kids about CRT, they're gonna feel bad about themselves, and they're gonna feel silenced. And
Anybody bringing up CRT now for that purpose is like acting in bad faith. I agree. Well, actually, this is an interesting question. Actually, you brought
because the race card people became the CRT people. They're fighting for their socio political standing right now.
But I mean, like the CRT people are like
the anti-CRT people, so people don't get confused.
The anti-CRT people.
Thank you.
Anti-CRT people.
The anti-CRT people.
Political standing, because the right is under attack right now. It's not looking too good for the right boys, for the right wingers. Right. Because of 2016 to 2021. So now they're going through all this. It's just cyclical. They're going through all this motion to try to regain a standing, and you have white men like Joe Rogan talking about, oh, we can't talk anymore because politics is so prevalent and woke culture is so prevalent, which is not a reality, because the social economics for those white men are still the same. In fact, it's going up. And they still have, even within their own spaces and within the public sphere, they're still able to move and move however they want to. But black erasure is still a thing. If you guys remember the In the Heights movie.
Hold on. Pause. I've been trying to tell you, we got to end this here. Okay. We got to go to the next topic. All right. But before that, Juju, thank you for being here. Or sorry, LVD. Sorry, you got two different names here, and it's confusing me.
Yeah.
LVD, thank you.
I do.
For joining us. We'd love to have you in the future. You were a lot of fun to have here. Like, really good points. So you're definitely welcome here in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun talking to you guys. Sorry about my accent again.
No, and, don't apologize for that. You're great. Yeah. Have a good one. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice to meet you.
So, we're going to roll into our next topic. If you've been enjoying, if you're here, stopping by, you're enjoying this conversation so far, or if it's enraging you, one or the other, hit the follow button, especially if it's enraging you. That's a lot more fun. Hit the follow button and make sure notifications are on, because we do this 6 days a week. We have these conversations. Don't miss out on them. All right. And again, I want to thank Mad Latin and Azzy for stopping in, joining us. Very much appreciated. All right. So we'll go on to our next topic, and this is going to be pretty wide. All right, topic 2.
Yes.
You can't look up to them white celebrities, bro. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
Jesus
Christ. Celebrities. You have to use the right label.
You know what? All right. I was gonna read this. Maybe I shouldn't even bother reading this. Maybe I should just get straight to the motherfucking point. All right.
Yeah. Yes, you should.
So I'm gonna. So fuck the topic 2 prompt.
Question prompt.
No, here we go. Right. Was Bill Cosby guilty of all the shit that he did, right? Was he a serial rapist? The answer is fucking yes, right? And I hope everyone else will agree with me that yes, Bill Cosby is a fucking serial rapist. All right, we're moving
probably
on.
Did.
We're doing
probably
it.
did.
We're moving.
Allegedly.
Not allegedly. He actually got fucking convicted. Not even
allegedly. Probably did. Allegedly.
No, sorry. We were on.
He probably did.
We're going.
But at the end of the day,
I said it was gonna be spicy.
We're doing it. All right.
The black father is out. The black father.
Okay, so we're gonna do introductions. Okay? Because people, if you're wondering, audience, we were going to do something different, but it was on Celebrity Sandwich Way. But the people in the panel wanted to talk about this, so we're doing it. Okay, so it is what it is. All right. So GSU Gambit. All right. Of course, you'll agree with me. Bill Cosby is a motherfucking rapist.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Everything. Hold on, let me go ask you. When everything first started happening, I was absolutely on your side, 100%. There was no one that was like, "Yo, that got Bill Cosby terrible." Like I held it, and then he got convicted, and I held, and I was like, "Yes, they got another bad guy. I'm happy." And I was super happy. I've been mortified over the last 24 hours. One was because we found out that was like prosecutorial misconduct, which I still held the opinion, hey, this just means they messed up. He's still a rapist. Then I was reading through some stuff and I found out that he never actually admitted to these things, because the prevailing narrative yesterday was that he actually admitted to this, and I believed it. But then when the deposition and stuff came out, he admitted that he did give women quaaludes, but he didn't admit that there was some sort of like they weren't in on it. So what I think this is akin to, and I don't like this behavior. I just think this is a reality, right? A lot of people in college like get drunk and have sex. A lot of people smoke weed and have sex. And if those things were the norms at the time and those people were saying that they were down with it, I don't know. Now, if those people weren't down with it when it was happening, then absolutely is rape. But if it's a situation where they feel like, oh, after this happened, I didn't get the gig that I thought I was going to get, blah, 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 now they're changing their minds and stuff, then I think that's disgusting. But I think we should talk through some of the facts of the cases that y'all think are definitely true. But yeah, I as a person that went to college, I saw people get drunk as hell and have sex and wake up the next day and they were still okay with it, right? So I think that we're looking at the past and we're forgetting the things that happened like literally today on campuses across the world. So we can say that we don't like what happens.
Does
And we
that
don't, we,
make it
we-
right, yo?
Don't.
Hey,
Yeah,
yo.
It's his
we'll
introduction.
talk
No,
about
we got to move on.
no,
I think
no.
that's your introduction.
We'll talk in the
We'll
open.
talk in
Yo,
open.
bro.
This shit is about to explode,
talk about
right? It's seconds away from detonating. All right.
Oh, nah.
Call your mama, call your papa. We're about to have a fight here. I mean, so let's go, Chris Cosmo.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Prime. Bill Cosby is, in my opinion, very much a serial rapist. I think when I'm looking for like whether or not like I believe someone's guilty, I don't look for them in like to admit exactly that, right? What I'm looking for is them to admit things that are like can be tied to their like this pattern behavior, and that's what happened. They found this testimony of admittance of him using quaaludes to entice women, right? And these women have like explained what happened to them like the night of whatever the situation is, and it was consistent with the effects of quaaludes, especially taken at like probably like a dosage that they couldn't handle. So like in my mind, with that admittance of using those drugs and the numerous testimonies of the women, that's enough for me. And like this overturning doesn't change anything for me. It was a technicality. I think he's still very much guilty, and like I don't know why like they chose now to overturn this. Like they knew what was happening in the case, like in the main case. Like this was brought up, and apparently in Philadelphia, this was like they made an exception. Like they make exception for these when you are tying it to like a modus operandi, that like a pattern of behavior. Like so they're allowed to do that, but for some reason they decided to overturn it now. Decided to get it disgusted about it now. So I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Let's
Prime,
go.
can we change your question? I just want to change your question because he just brought up something interesting that I didn't know people held. Can we ask also, do we think this conviction should be overturned regardless of how people feel about him?
Oh,
You
Like, I
can do
think
that on the
because
Black is
he's-
More podcast. Let's proceed, bro.
sorry. I just want to be. I just want to be
No,
very clear.
so one is you asked, is he a sexual predator, right? Which is a conversation. Now Chris has injected, he thinks the case shouldn't have been overturned, even though that was prosecutorial misconduct. So I'm wondering if
Oh, okay.
we don't have to.
No,
I was just saying,
no. I
can
mean,
we
that
ask
can be
both?
a part of it. The thing is, I'm not a lawyer, so like it does seem like
Yeah,
they
that's
fucked
what I
up
was
to me. But that's like a separate question. It does seem like if, but again, if Chris, you're introducing something else here that I'm not aware of, that maybe
No,
in Philadelphia there's some sort of special case, a special exception for these things. I don't know. I can't adjudicate that, so I don't
yeah.
know.
What I'm saying is like yeah, because the way that like they're able to overturn it because of that, right? But there was at the time they made an exception, but that there's like that strategy was vulnerable, and we see it now. I'm not saying legally that like they should just they should just overturn it like based on like my feelings. What I'm saying is based like in my gut, Like I think they shouldn't have overturned it, but I don't have any legal like precedent to go off of for that. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't think they should have went out of their way to overturn that. Or like if they had to overturn that, like we should be able to try to charge him again, like go to trial again and like get something else because this is ridiculous.
We'll talk in the open.
Okay, yeah,
That's,
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
I got
I
you.
got to
yeah,
let other people in.
yeah.
And
Go ahead, like we can direct
thank you
someone.
for the $5. Small big guy flex who says Cosby is a rapist, 100%. Absolutely. Let's move on. Anima.
Yeah, I mean, I think really just going under the fact that there was a conviction. If it was just an accusation, I would give a little bit more leeway. But there's already a conviction, and if he's being let out on a technicality, I think it's pretty much set in stone of what the narrative is. I mean, and I feel like the narrative, like the timeline for which these accusations came out for, there wasn't necessarily like a big reason. Like many people say, oh, like certain candidates may have accusations come out during election time, so oh, there's no wonder why this came out. There was nothing like that there. And really, this is just a like the timeline and just the conviction. I think it paints a pretty clear picture that this was she is a rapist. So
Okay. Wow.
That man did some bad things to those women. He's a rapist. However, I am willing to look into this the deposition to see what it is, but I'm wondering what the degree of charitability we're giving to somebody that admits they're giving women quaaludes, and I'm wondering kind of if this really should piece together how you feel about it. If like we really have to get into the details because if he's giving these women drugs that they can't handle, I think that's just as bad as when people try to get a girl blackout drunk at a party. I think that's very, very bad. But I'm willing to see the nuance there for the people that are willing to defend him. But if we just have to get into the details and we can do it in the open.
Fanatic. Okay, maybe Fanatic's having trouble. Let's go to.
Yeah, I was saying.
go
Can
ahead.
we let everyone else go first?
Okay, I see.
So I'm gonna keep it short. Cosby did it, probably did it. He admitted to it, but the Supreme Court overturned it. He's a free man. He did 2 to 3. He was going blind in the prisons. He was probably from what I hear, he was turning the prisoners into better citizens on the inside. All right, so maybe maybe prison works, man. Maybe prison works. Maybe it makes people better. All right, so hopefully he comes out. He does all right. Listen, I don't have much of an opinion on this. They freed the black god with the black father of America. They freed him. Fortunately, he was a rapist. I do not want to make this equal to college parties where people. This is like I don't know. I don't want to go into that territory. That's a little wishy washy. You would have to make a lot of like equivalencies between things. I don't want to do that. Yeah. He's free. Um, yeah. I don't know.
Okay, Mad Lad.
So he clearly raped those women, right? Like, so he doesn't have to admit to doing it. There is this thing called intent in legal system where you have to prove the intent. And I mean, he said he gave them quaaludes, and then the women had sex with him, and that's all there. And there's a sort of like implied narrative that he gave them quaaludes so that he could have sex with them, and they were not happy about the sex that they had, which implies very strongly that it was a rape. So yes, he's a rapist. He's a serial rapist. And just because he made prisoners better in prison does not mean that he's any less of a rapist. He's just a guy who knows how to be friends with dudes in prison. Because
We all have our faults.
Yeah, and his fault is that he's a serial rapist. I think Prime's question was, is he a serial rapist? Yes, he's a serial rapist. He got off on a technicality and barely got off on a technicality. This wasn't like a unanimous decision. This was like 4-3, right? Like half the judges weren't like about this in the first place for the most part, but the majority won, and that's what's going on. I don't know enough about the legal system to say like what the next steps are or like whether the legalese was correct or not. I just know that this is extremely disappointing.
Okay. All right, Fanatic.
Whew, yeah, this is pretty rough. Yeah, it's crazy to me. I feel like hearing so many people say the things that they've said thus far is clearly indicative to me of the fact that these people have been fed a media narrative, don't actually know anything about the case, haven't studied it whatsoever, and are just literally just parrots. They're literally just parrots. Because the same thing happened when it came to the OJ trial, where everyone started saying, yeah, I think he's guilty. Just all they were talking about was a glove, because they didn't actually follow any of the actual information of the actual trial to actually come to the truth of it. And the same thing happened to Michael Jackson, and the same thing is happening to Cosby right now. First off, Chris Cosmos makes the ridiculous statement they made an exception. You don't make exceptions for violating people's constitutional rights. They circumvented his the Fifth Amendment by making him testify against himself, taking the words out of context. So that's actually disgusting. You don't make exceptions for that. It was absolutely insane to me. And the fact that they could do this to one of the most powerful and wealthy Black individuals in this country let you know how much more disgusting things are happening when people don't have extremely powerful lawyers that can actually push something to be taken to the Supreme Court to be overturned. It's crazy. It's a miscarriage of justice. We should never make exceptions for violating people's constitutional rights. It's disgusting. Then you said they should be able to try him again. This would literally be essentially a third trial. We already have a problem with double jeopardy, and now you want us to do a triple jeopardy, literally on the backdrops of a freaking constitutional violation. It's insane to me. Then Anima makes a statement, the fact that there was a constitution sways me. What the frick does that even, I'm sorry, the fact that there was a conviction sways me. What the frick does that even mean? Do you know how many exonerations are like in this country? Black people make up 13% of the population, but we make up about 1,800 exonerations a year, 47%, and those exonerations actually take longer than they do with Caucasian people. So we're significantly more likely to be wrongfully convicted. It's insane to me. And the fact that we know how often we're wrongfully convicted, we have data to show how many exonerations there are, where there's clear indication of police misconduct and planting of evidence. And even with that, you're still willing to say, well, I don't know. The fact that he was convicted says everything to me. Wild as hell. Then someone else mentioned a statement. This was Baja Blast. He admitted to giving Quaaludes to women. He admitted to doing it. It's equivalent to getting a girl blackout drunk. I don't think that that's true whatsoever. Anybody that actually knows anything about Quaaludes, I know I'm an old dude. I'm probably the oldest person on this panel. I wasn't around during freaking Quaaludes, but I at least know about them and know enough about them to know that they were recreationally taken. He admitted they were recreationally taken. Even the victims themselves, on countless occasions, plenty of them mentioned that they recreationally, willingly took these drugs. He never admitted in any capacity that he provided these drugs without the knowledge of these women. That has never been stated. So simply admitting that you give someone a drug and it almost sounds to me, because the media has successfully painted this picture, is as if Cosby was giving all these women roofies. That's absolutely not true. Quaaludes are not roofies. It takes an extreme amount of roofies before they become functionally the same thing. Same thing could be said about freaking alcohol. You give somebody enough alcohol, and guess what? They're incapacitated to the point that they can't defend themselves and that they can't consent, right? Same thing can be said for Quaaludes. Same thing could be said for a bevy of drugs, but they're not roofies. People took them recreationally. No, I don't have to go into any names. This is a common thing. Janice Dickinson said it. She's a victim. I'll go into that specific name. Literally admitted that she willingly took the Quaaludes. Some of them literally said, he offered me Quaaludes and I denied them. So the fact that he was like sneaking these all to women and that this happened to be the narrative is just absolutely ridiculous. He never admitted to that. Saying that he was turning, as he made the statement, he was turning people into prison, better people on the inside. So prison works. No, that's not a product of prison.
I was joking.
One of his biggest controversies.
You don't come after me, Fanatic. Come on.
Happened to be in the beginning when he like made the statement about pull your pants up, and Black people out decried that statement really voraciously. And the reason was because he was literally trying to preach a message about self-help and self-determination in the Black community, which a lot of people felt was dismissive of the actual systemic oppression and things that are
Friendly
affecting your body.
fire.
So the fact of the matter is, this has been his platform for God knows how long. He doesn't need the money, but he has been a motivational speaker for God knows how long. So it's not that prison did anything. He just continued to do what he had already been doing, trying to inspire people once he was in prison. Mad Lad, you made the statement he clearly raped those women. They said they didn't enjoy sex, which is indicative of rape. 20 to 30% of women don't even experience orgasms during freaking sex. That's crazy. So just saying that someone didn't
not want to have sex with them. That's what they said.
So just saying the statement that so simply someone not enjoying sex is indicative of rape is absolutely ridiculous. Freak out of here. You literally said
fine.
I know you gotta respond to
clear.
5 different
He's not
arguments,
gonna
but you're
have sex
missing a lot
with
of
them.
false
He's a rapist.
Oh.
And you're using one lens to look at this case and not looking at a whole series of lenses that you can use to assess whether he's a rapist or not. You're going in the, oh, well, lots of black men are accused of rape, and so Bill Cosby has to be one of them because he's black. And that's stupid. It's stupid. You have to use different lenses to look at this case. And you're going to go all big and mighty and talk shit about everybody.
You came after me, bro. What I said was the truth. What I said was the truth.
You're right. I am looking at it through one lens, Mad Lad. The lens is you're innocent until proven guilty. There has been no actual evidence to prove that he's guilty. The only evidence that you would ever try to depend on to try to say that he's guilty is testimony, and then it's a misconstrued testimony at that. You didn't read that freaking deposition. You don't know what the freak you're talking about. You don't know what Quaaludes are. You don't know the content of that.
This case several times.
Okay.
You know anything about what I've read. First of all,
thank you. So Matt Ladden, you can respond. I know this is open panel. This is open. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
So I'm going to be very polite here. We don't have to yell. Let's be very civil about this.
No,
Bill
I'm
Cosby. Bill Cosby was convicted of raping one woman. It was one conviction. It wasn't all of the women that had come forward. They could only get him on the one, and it was because of a civil suit where he admitted to giving quaaludes to this specific woman and other women in general. And he did this because he understood that the prosecutor in his region, his district or whatever, wasn't interested in prosecuting him in the first place. That prosecutor left. He was a temporary agent of the state. A new agent of the state took his place and then proceeded to prosecute him. That's what happened. They took the deposition. All right. Well, I'm explaining. Actually, I am responding because I'm explaining the details of the case that I understand, comparing them to the details of the case that you understand, so we can figure out where we're not actually seeing eye to eye. So I am actually responding to what you're saying. Right, so this is what happened, and this is where you're saying his 5th and 14th Amendment rights were violated because he testified against himself in a future criminal case during a civil case. That's the technicality that we're talking about, that the majority of this court just said lets him out of jail, right? Like that's the evidence that they were calling him, saying was not allowed. Now, when you read a court case, do you read just the majority decision or do you read like the minority decision too? Like, did you look at both when you were reading about this case?
You haven't responded to a single thing I said.
All right, fine. What's one thing you want me to respond to? Give me one. Just we'll go down the list. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to talk about?
Jesus. So let's talk about the fact that there is no actual evidence aside from testimony. Do you agree with that statement? Is it true or not?
No actual evidence besides.
Yeah, that's the case in most rape cases. In so many rape cases, we only
wait. So does the women's testimony not count?
Yeah.
What about the women's testimony?
What's that? No. I asked a question. Don't try to move the goalpost on the question. It's a simple question.
The goalpost.
And then you can. I will respond to your question after you answer mine. Was there any evidence aside from testimony? I'm saying it loudly to make sure you hear it this time. Was there any evidence aside from testimony?
Let me double check.
He admitted. You didn't need
That's testimony. That's testimony. Hold on. Let me double check. I think it's a fair question.
So,
All right, let's move on to next.
So, look, as far as I know, that was the main evidence. I mean, these things happened many years ago, so there wasn't any physical evidence beside the point. Now, see, here's why I believe he is guilty, right? Because he's fucking guilty, because he's a fucking rapist, right? So like the Quaaludes wasn't the thing that made me think that he was guilty. It was the fact that 60 women talked about how he forced them into that situation, and just because they say, right, that they may have consented to certain parts of it, understand this was especially back then, right, in the 80s, like, this man was the biggest celebrity, number one, biggest, right? This man talking about, like, I'm gonna make a career for you, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess I'll take your freaking old ass fucking dick. Like, that's what happened. That's what happened, right? And just to say,
Wait, that's right.
yes, when you force yourself on others, right? When,
You didn't say force.
No.
It's not
Hold
force.
on.
I misunderstood you. Go ahead.
Hold on. When you force yourself on people, right? When you don't actually give them a choice, right? That's sexual assault. When you're like, when a boss, right? When a boss says that, like, oh hey, for your career, right? It'd be nice if you could come back to my hotel room, and you say, yeah, I guess. Is that a woman consenting? Does that sound like consent to you? I hope no one here, and I hope no one listening
Hold on,
would ever do
hold
something
on.
like that.
Are
No,
you?
please don't hold on.
So we've
I'm
moved
not
the
holding
goalposts.
on. I'm not holding on. Thank you. No, like to use your power in that manner, right? That's not a woman like she's saying the words yes. It doesn't mean that she actually wants to have sex with you, right? We can understand that. And then for some of them, because I'm not familiar with every single one of their stories, because there's 60 women that accuse Bill Cosby because he's a fucking serial rapist, right? Because there's 61, I don't know them all, right? He might have forced himself on others. I actually don't know, right? But that's part of it. He literally used his power. He uses power, like, and again, the biggest celebrity. I think people don't maybe understand now because, you know, so many years have passed, generations have grown up who have not actually known this guy, but huge he was, right, in Hollywood. And then for him to say to you, like, I can make your career, because he can make your career. He could actually do that, right? And he's like, yeah, why don't you come back to my place? Oh yeah, I guess I will. And to imply that, oh yeah, I guess it's okay? That's not okay. It's not okay. He's a fucking rapist.
So we've moved the goalposts. We've moved the
No,
goalposts
not
from
at all.
rapist to yes, you did, because you literally just
So-
now what you just described was coercion. So now we're no longer talking about he's a rapist. Now you're saying
So
that
coercion
he's
doesn't happen
guilty of
in rape?
coercion.
Coercion is not part of a rape, right? If someone says
You have to understand that coercion and rape are two totally different
boy.
things. Do you not agree with that?
No, like,
Do you
yes,
not?
they
Do you
are,
not? Do you? Wait, they're
Coercion
literally different
is a
legal
part
terms.
of rape.
Coercion and rape. You know that those are different things, right?
coercion
Yes, but they can be
that
used-
follows sexual
coercion
that
be-
precedes sexual assault. So yeah, it precedes the sex. The coercion, yes, there was a coercion at the beginning, and then the sex happened. The coercive sex, rape, sexual assault.
Okay, so at this point now, like, so now that we're at a point of coercion, I would absolutely say that Cosby probably used his fear influence. Now, I don't know that he did so coercively, because in a lot of these cases, it wasn't like I'm your direct. These people are his direct employees. Actually, to the contrary, when we start looking at people who he had direct impact on their relationships, on their careers. You have your Felicia Rashads, who has still been defending him to this day. You have your Raven Simones. We have all of these other people who did work directly for him. What's the other girl? I can't remember. All of the women who were directly underneath him, who he actually worked with, none of them had these claims. So now at this point, when you want to start getting into claims of
every
coercion,
single woman.
it starts being.
He didn't rape every
No,
yes,
it's not.
he did.
It's not.
He
It's no. That's
hasn't
not the statement that I'm
every
making.
single
I'm not.
woman.
That's not
no,
the statement.
The fact that they're
is not
defending
the
them means
statement.
nothing.
That's
Holy shit,
not-
were they there?
that's
No, he's
not the-
making a
that's
different
not-
statement.
That wasn't the statement that
Okay.
I'm making. The statement that I'm making is not that he didn't rape every single woman, because that sounds vacuous and ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
The statement
Thank
that I'm
you.
making, the statement, of course, that's why I would never make it. The statement that I'm making is that none of the women who were direct subordinates of his, who he had direct impact on their careers, had this experience with him. Zero. Now, all of these other tangential potential possibilities of hopefuls that might one day possibly get an advancement in their career by taking some Cosby dick. He might have lured his dick into those women to do that. And I'm not saying that he didn't, But I think it gets a lot harder to convince me that it's coercive once he's not directly impactful over their careers. Once he's not a person that's in a decision-making process for their
You're
careers.
wrong. You're
It's
wrong. You're
literally
wrong.
just
Here we go.
it's
Because
wishful
there were
thinking.
women who talked about exactly this. Apparently, you don't know the details of the case, right? Because there were women who talked. Well, not this case. I mean, like the because there were so many women. Again, dozens of women accused him of rape because he's a fucking rapist. Again, but there were other women who talked about like to get on the show, to get on the Bill Cosby show. I'm gonna lie to get on the show. You're gonna have a role. You're gonna have a major role. I'm gonna mentor you. I'm gonna mentor you, right? But first, come over to my house, right? And then, and as I'm talking, I'm literally remembering the case, right? Come over to my house, right? And then like pretend you're drunk. This is his thing. But pretend you're drunk. Do you guys remember this part of the case, right? Like he would ask all these women to pretend that they were drunk, and then and also later on give them drugs and whatnot, right? But like that was part of his thing, right? He was saying that I am going to make your career, and to say that just because the most prominent people within, those are the people who had literally the most power on the show. If anyone could bust up his game, right? If the wrong woman would have been Felicia Rashad to have made a move on, right? He recognizes that because he's a fucking predator. This is what fucking predators do, right? He recognizes where the weakness is and where the strength is, so he goes after the weaker individuals. He's a fucking predator. That's what he does.
Yeah, so one, that's not true. I'm familiar with the Thomas chick that you're talking about, who changed her story 3 times. I'm familiar with her story and her claiming that she went to Cosby's house and he gave her the drink and he told her, you're going to be pretending to be drunk, but she discovered that the drink ended up being like something, it made her weak and yada, 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 yada. And then she goes on to tell what I believe to probably be a lie about her. In that specific case, because of the fact that she changed her story 3 times, that's what makes me doubt it. Had it just, and I think the same thing for Janice Dickinson. But the idea is within those stories, again, that only speaks to my issue. These aren't people who are direct subordinates of Cosby. These are hopeful people wistfully believing that maybe if they go ahead and slang some pussy in that nigga's direction, that he might be able to bless their career. And they're hoping that this nigga will bestow the gifts on them. And that's what's happening. There's a very big difference between that, a potential hopeful trying to slang some pussy, and the
Let's
actual people who are his subordinates.
And hey, we can talk about this. Let's not talk about it that way, okay?
Okay, I guess I'll change my verbiage.
Change
There's
your
a difference,
please.
Right? There's a difference between people engaging in sexual encounters with the potential of gaining benefits on their career and hopefuls to gaining benefits on their career. There's a difference between that and direct subordinates who he has actual power and control and direct influence over their career. There's a drastic difference between those two things. And when you point out to me that Emily, I think it's something starting with an E and her last name is Thomas. When you point out to me the Thomas chick, E. Thomas, and her situation, she perfectly falls within the thing that I already pointed out, that the people who are making these claims are all either washed up or having never been afloat celebrities who Cosby didn't have direct power over them. So when you start getting into coercion, the idea that he would be coercive in that way, it starts becoming harder to prove as he didn't have direct influence or direct control.
What does that matter? I don't understand. Like, just like this is the
What
same
does
thing
it
that
mean
happened with
proving
Weinstein.
coercion?
Like Weinstein, like victimized plenty of women who were nobodies, who were washed up, right? That doesn't mean he didn't do what he did.
Weinstein did it to people who were literally employed by him. He was literally the producer on these movies and these women in the sexual encounters in order to maintain their position.
Yes,
so he did have direct control. That's the difference. He
not
had
on all
direct
of them.
control. So they're not the same.
What different? Hold on.
Not even listen to what
Guys, Chris, go for it. I'm about to go off again, but go ahead, please.
What I was saying was there was women, right? Not all of them, but some of them were washed up and who weren't in any sphere of influence, who weren't even working with Harvey Weinstein that happened to. They were just like trying to talk to Harvey Weinstein, and he's like, well, here, come to my office here at night, like around this time. This is the only time I have free. And you open the door and he's in a robe, right? Like that it doesn't like this doesn't change anything. It doesn't make like it doesn't matter if they were looking for an opportunity. If they were victimized, they were victimized. Like I don't get this. Like,
Oh, hold on. And this nonsense about having direct control? What? What difference does that make? Again, that's not how Hollywood works. It's like, oh no, we're not directly within my organization. What? Like Bill Cosby, like everyone wanted this man. Everyone wanted this man, right? They wanted him in his movies, right? They wanted him in their specials. They wanted him in the commercials, right? This man had his fingers in everything, right? Because he was the biggest, right? A superstar like few others at the time. Like Eddie Murphy was like on his level at that point in time, right? Like so that when he says that I can make your career, it doesn't even matter if you're gonna be on the show or not. You don't have to be on directly under them, and that's not how fucking show business works. He's in contact with all those producers, and he can blackball them, right? That's something you can do. You can acknowledge that, right? When you're the biggest star in Hollywood, that you can actually blackball people from other opportunities. You get that? He can cancel them. Oh,
he was incredibly powerful. I give that to you. He was absolutely incredibly powerful. I think the point that I'm making is specifically when you want to start talking about like provable coercion, you have to be able to point out towards the idea like that this person it's going the burden of proof again. A person is innocent until proven guilty. If that's the case,
it was done. Thank you.
Well,
we already did that.
So here's the deal. You want to say he was proven guilty. He was proven guilty in a case that literally was illegal. That was 100% a violation of his constitutional rights.
I get it, but that doesn't mean
no. Not just the prosecutor, the judge as well, the district attorney as well. The district attorney had no business trying that case. He knew it. Rule 3.8 of that state literally says you can't take a case that you don't believe that you don't believe is provable. And he said in his email chains, it got leaked. I'm sorry, it didn't get leaked. In his email chains, which were forced to be released by the prosecution, thanks to Monique Presley and the amazing Cosby defense, they found that there was all sorts of insane amounts of pressure on this individual to file these charges. He didn't actually want to do it originally. There was so much pressure. He said it was a loser of a case. He said that there was reasons why it wasn't being done. They made the conscious decision not to do this case with good reason. So all of it wasn't just prosecutorial misconduct. The judge should have prevented it from happening because the case should have been thrown out because of the violation of his constitutional right. The prosecutor should have done it. The district attorney shouldn't have done it. It shouldn't have taken 3 years to get to the Supreme Court. And it's only a product of his power.
Okay, so how many more dozens of women would it take to be believed, right? So that something might have happened, that this coercion, right? How many dozens of women have to show up, right, before we start believing them? Well, is it how many? Let's get a number, right? Because 60, right?
No, there's no number.
All these washed up celebrities that you were talking about, right? Number. Or never had been, right? Yeah, apparently there is no number. There's 60 of them, over 24 individuals, right? Were there. And tell me how many before we just start believing? They all decided we're going to lie on this guy. We're all going to face the immense hate, the death threats, right? That we all could get, that we all could live our lives without, right? We're going to face all of that. We're going to face all of that just today. I just feel like it, nothing actually happened, right? It was just a bad date, right? But today I'm going to call it rape. That's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to spend months, years of my life dealing with this and the trauma and the harassment, right? And they all decided to do that. So what's the number, right? Does it have to be 300?
Yeah, so
maybe 400? I don't know.
Okay.
You tell me.
So I think that question is a little bit ridiculous. So I think there's a few things, right? So we can talk about the death threats that they got. But we can also talk about the fact, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, I'm pretty sure you'd be willing to admit this, that for many of these women, they got significantly more attention than they ever would have. Plenty of these women literally received large amounts of money. Some of them literally tried to launch book deals off of this thing. So we can talk about the harm that comes from the death threats from the detractors. But let's talk about some of the motivation that led these women to do that. Let's not talk about these things in a vacuum as if there wasn't a decision-making process that would be influential and that would be beneficial to some of these women. Some of these women are making this conscious decision to make this choice because they know they're going to get primetime interviews. We saw the same thing happen in the long hot summer of 2020 when the FGC had all of these stories come forward with all of these people talking about sexual assault in the community, and then someone started going through all of the cases, and a great deal of these cases were 100% fabricated. Some of the cases, people even in the Cosby case, where they were literally proven he wasn't anywhere near. We have have documented evidence of where he was during this time. You lied. He was absolutely not at the Playboy Mansion. You have Janice Dickinson literally making the lie point blank, releasing a memoir, admitting to taking Quaaludes and going to sleep in her bed by herself, and later on claiming she was sexually assaulted on another account, and then lying. And then on the stand under oath saying the words, I lied in order to get a paycheck for my kids. Literally said those words. So if we're gonna sit here and talk about this thing, I don't care about how many numbers you're gonna claim. I don't care if you can say it's 70, 80. Once you have a significant profit motive and you recognize you're in the middle of a movement with attention-starved people who are literally trying their best to get to the limelight, hoping to launch financial security like Wade Robson. Once you get to that point, then now at this point, I don't think there's an amount of numbers that'll change that. I think this entire story is compromised. I think this entire story is compromised once you now have this released, unsealed deposition, and then after the unsealed deposition, now you have copycats trying to claim the exact same story. I think that provides numerous amounts of doubt on this story, and I think anybody trying to say otherwise is just playing into their media bias.
I mean, like, literally, you're looking at it in one lens. You're saying, oh, well, if one woman lied about it to get money, that means all of them had to lie about it to try to get money.
No, that's not what he said. That's not what he said.
What are you saying right now?
That's not what he said.
What is that?
I'm not even trying to defend his point, but he's basically saying that the case wasn't done right, and even criminals there is a due process that must be followed.
Right. So the
even for Cosby.
That was separate. That was two things. That was two things. One was
I want to talk about whether.
No, I was just
saying.
I
want to talk about whether Bill.
Sorry, I was just saying quickly that was two things. He said that what you said, Azzy, right? But on the other side, he's talking about the believability of the women. So sorry, Madeline, go ahead.
Okay, so we're talking about, like, literally, you're claiming that because some of the women were doing it for money, and you have a link, I suppose, that will prove that a woman testified on the stand that she was going after.
Look it up, Janice Dickinson. Look it up.
All right.
What he's talking about is her memoir that she lied about, and she says she lied about.
No, I'm talking about her being on the stand. On the stand. She testified that she lied for a paycheck.
Memoir.
Okay, well, either way. So because this one woman stated that she lied about it, you're saying
E. Thomas, who changed her story multiple times.
Okay, so like there's
some of the other women that came forward and they were paid and scouted out.
But there's
Hold on. What women were paid and scouted out? Hold on, let's look into this. Hold on.
I just like to Google it to try to find the names. There were plenty of women who claimed later on that they were scouted out.
Okay, Madeline, go ahead.
Well, regardless, the point is you can't just say, oh, well, because this woman said this one thing and she lied, that means all the other women.
I didn't say that. That's stupid. That's not the way the logic works. You're arguing the inverse.
No, right. So why are you even bringing up this point then? Like, what's the point of you bringing it up? You're the one who said, like, you're the one. Okay. What's the point? Why did you bring it all up? Why is some of the
he got convicted on one woman.
I brought it up to demonstrate the fact that you can't just say because they're testimony that means that it's truthful. And here are examples, even within the Cosby case, that some of these examples are truthful. So simply pointing out to a number, simply pointing out to a number does nothing, because especially once you recognize that there are more and more women who are getting more and more success. This story is literally front news information, and you have all of these women who are now being able to be paid money for it. So then at that point, there is a profit motive. And unless you can prove to me that these stories have anything that can corroborate them, I believe in the statute that someone is innocent until proven guilty. And I believe everyone else who just wants to say, nope, we are sure he's a rapist, and there's literally no evidence aside from testimony, and we're going to rely simply on a sheer amount of numbers. They do that all the time with class action lawsuits. Like this is literally a prosecutorial tactic. It's a tool, and it's crazy to me that it works on sheeple. The idea that, well, as long as X amount of people say it, then that means that it has to be true. That's crazy. So
there's an actual like tape recorded conversation between Cosby and one of these women where she asked him, "What were the pills that you gave me?" And she actually tape recorded his response. So he actually has the conversation with her, not knowing that she's tape recording this, acknowledging that he gave her pills and that she had no idea what those pills were, and that he had touched her, kissed her, and rubbed her in places that she didn't want to be touched and rubbed, and even apologizing for doing so. Would you consider that evidence?
That sounds like some pretty freaking. That sounds like some pretty.
Okay, well, that's the case. I mean, that's the case. Like, it's literally if you actually look at the.
So that's not legal evidence, though, right? You
Well, I mean, I'm
understand
not
that, right?
right. I
Like, you
understand
understand,
that,
like in the vast
right.
majority of states, like trying
No,
to
I
like record
understand
someone
like
against their will
secret
and so on and so
recordings.
forth.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's not my point. The first question was, is Bill Cosby a rapist? Right? Like that sounds pretty rapey to me. Is that not rapey? Like the fact that he gave her mystery pills and then started fondling her in different places, and
If
having
listen, so here's the deal:
backwards.
if Bill Cosby gave a woman quaaludes without her information, without her knowledge, and then started fondling her while she was incapacitated, obviously he would be a rapist.
Okay, well,
Clearly, he denied ever doing that. So I would need to encounter the information that you have because he
all right,
clearly
it's right
denied
here.
having ever given anyone quaaludes against their knowledge. Link that to me, please.
This is the
Of course,
thing.
he wouldn't admit that.
Yeah,
I mean,
do
he
you know who
doesn't
the
have to
person
admit to
was?
it. Like,
No,
yeah,
I
it's
just
the
want
person. It's literally the person that they got him. The charge that got him in jail in the first
Constance.
place. Yeah, this is the person. Like, it's all right here. I'm
Yeah,
reading about
link
this
it.
right now.
Link it.
I put it in the. I put it in Twitch chat. I put it in
Andrea Constant.
It's in the
their
StreamYard.
thing. I'll put it in Discord. Like, I'll put it in all the different places. And I'm looking through this, and it looks like Bill Cosby is a
Where's
rapist.
that part? Where's the part
Hold on.
that says?
Putting in yeah.
Yeah, we see it.
No, I'm
Where's the
looking
part-
at
which
the
page?
link. Yeah.
It's 79 pages. Just looking for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
what
this,
page?
the first part, just in the beginning, page.
What
hold on.
page?
The word recording isn't in here. The word record isn't. What can I Command F and find it? That's all. That's all. I'm not saying that I don't
Yeah,
believe you. I just don't want to scan this entire document.
I understand.
And neither does the chat.
No, recorded. It's right here on page 7 at the top.
Command F isn't working?
Huh? Maybe it's not searching for the words. It's record though. Yeah, recorded.
Yeah, it's
There's
recorded
7,
right
and
there.
the term comes up 7 times. So like, there's recordings of him actually acknowledging that this event happened. I mean, he's presenting it in the "oh, we made out" sort of light, but he also apologized for not telling her what the pills were and never getting back to her on what those pills were. I mean, it seems pretty clear cut. And I'm not saying that the prosecutors and the folks responsible for trying Cosby did a good job, because apparently they did not, because otherwise he'd be still in jail. My point is that he's a rapist.
Yeah, so here goes the direct lie right here. So I'm reading it right now. This is crazy. So I need you to find me the part that you said that he admitted to giving her quaaludes in this call. Because I'm reading right here and it says
He doesn't have to admit that he gave her quaaludes. All he has
no,
to do
he
is
didn't have to
acknowledge
admit it,
the
but you said that he did, and then you provided this link to try to prove that, and he didn't.
I said that he acknowledges giving her pills and not identifying what those pills ever were. That's what he did.
What he said.
No, you said
he did not say quaaludes. He did not say quaaludes. You said quaaludes, and I know you're hot right now because you're talking to 5 people. But he did not say quaaludes.
He literally said the words. She asked him, "What pills did you give me?" And then he said quaaludes.
No, clip it. Someone clip it. Go back. I know you're hot right now, but you need to go back and look at that.
Okay, I'm sorry. So he didn't admit that. So then, what are you saying he admitted to?
He admitted
to identify.
Giving her pills, and then in a later
Good.
call,
Show me
did
where
not
he
name the
admitted that.
pills.
Where does it say that? Where does
It's
it
on
say that?
page 7 at the very end of the first paragraph.
Now, for someone who's well read on this case,
as with the previous call, Cosby again
Hold
refused
on,
to
Matt
identify the pills that he had provided to Contran on the night of the alleged assault. So what are you talking about? Where does he say that he had even admitted to giving her pills?
Like, how does that
Sure.
not sound incredibly
Okay,
rapey?
I mean, like,
great.
literally,
I got it, because
can
you're
look
already
at the-
biased. I don't care about how things sound to you. You literally said
No,
simply saying that they
you're looking at this
literally said
case
the
in one
statement that
lens.
just because he said that he took quaaludes with a woman indicates that he's a rapist. I guess me having drunk alcohol with some of the people that I've had sex with makes me a rapist too, right? Yeah,
and
get
using
freaked out
that
of
to
here.
tell her
No,
what?
no,
Can
I did
you
not
show
say
me-
that, and I would
show
never
me
say
where
that.
he says
Dude,
that.
all right, hold
Show
on.
me
No,
where.
No, this
So
is
you want me to
some
read this
fucking-
entire document of 79 pages and you're
Well,
not going to
if
tell
you
me where?
actually want to know anything about the case, you probably should have to, shouldn't you? If you're going to say, "Oh, I know
I've
everything
read
about this
plenty
case,"
of things. I've read
okay,
depositions.
well, this is the
Okay, so
whole
yes, you're just
deposition
making
on the
things up.
whole
So you
thing.
said something and you
Oh, I'm
can't
making
prove
things
it.
up.
on.
Wait,
So you
what are you
lied.
talking about? What are you even talking about? Like, this is
Page
the
7.
actual case right
Page
here.
7.
Just
Read page
look
7.
at it.
Where does he admit to giving her a drug? This
He
isn't even-
doesn't
this is-
admit.
this-
No,
this
so
isn't
so
even-
you
this isn't
have
even-
to read.
this isn't even the actual paper.
Stop. Azzy, read out the part you're talking about. I can't open it up because it's going to fuck up the stream. So please.
So, as with the previous call, I'll just read the prior sentence. Cosby asked Constant to meet him in person, discuss these matters further, and told her that he would have someone contact her to set up the meeting. As with the previous call, Cosby again refused to identify the pills that he had provided to Constant on the night of the alleged assault.
This assumes this assumes that he did provide her pills, though, right?
It
Yeah,
says,
maybe
go to
it's
page
challenging.
8, page 8 in the paragraph in the middle. It
I mean,
says,
he's
on
acknowledging
January
that he gave her pills.
Sorry, what was it?
He actually
It's
refused.
It's not that he didn't identify them, so we don't know what they are.
Baha,
No,
So we don't know
Baha,
saying that
Baha,
sentence-
Baha, what are you saying? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, read the other sentence.
On page
Read the other-
8, it goes in to say what he and his attorneys have said. I can just read it real quick right
go
here.
ahead.
Cosby reported that Constant had come to his home at least 3 times during their social and romantic relationship. Cosby claimed that on the night in question, Constant came to his house complaining of an inability to sleep. Cosby said that he told Constant that when he travels, he takes Benadryl, an antihistamine, which immediately makes him drowsy. According to Cosby, he then handed Constant 1.5 Benadryl pills, but did not tell her what they were. So even in this admission, he admits that he did not tell her what they were, and of course, it's his word versus hers, and he's just saying he gave her Benadryl. But he still holds to the fact that he did not identify, he did not tell her what the pills were.
Right.
So
I feel like if it's implied, if I make this statement, typically when I feel bad, I take Benadryl in order to feel better, and then I hand you I say, do you want something to make you feel better? And then I hand you a pill. I would assume that it's already implied that it would be the same Benadryl that I already referenced previously in the conversation.
Well, that's
So
provided
this is
that
just
he
illegal.
actually
This is just
being honest.
This is just legalese of him pointing out, like, hey, he didn't directly identify the pill. Which, if that's something you want to cling to, it sounds ridiculous.
No, it's not. You're taking Bill Cosby's word for it.
Clearly, he told her that the pill that he takes in this situation was Benadryl, and then he immediately handed her a pill, and later on identified the pills as Benadryl
Our story
in
is
the
that
legal
this
court.
did not
So then the
happen.
idea is the fact that just clinging on loosely to the fact that he didn't directly say to her, "This is Benadryl," is a little bit ridiculous.
So
right?
okay, yeah, I hear you on that. Let me,
And he's
Matt, let
lying.
me get in here.
Thank
Let me get in here real
thank
quick.
you. Thank you, Baha. That's the reason for being honest.
Cosby admitted that he told Constant and her mother that he would write down the name of the pills and provide them that information, but he acknowledged that he never actually did so. That's on page 9, it's like right after that paragraph. So I get this is just OJ Simpson again. Do you think OJ's innocent? Yes or no?
Of course.
Not by letter of law. Do you like in your gut you feel like he didn't murder 2 people?
I genuinely believe O.J. Simpson's son was the one that killed Cole Brown Simpson, and I think there's plenty of evidence to say that. And I also believe that there is literally zero evidence to suggest that O.J. Simpson is guilty.
So if O.J. Simpson
you
wrote a
actually
book
follow the
about
case?
how he would have done the murders and
He didn't
published
write
it,
that book. That book was ghost written. He did not write that book. He literally signed his name to it because at that point he was already done with the trial. He was in financial ruin after losing the civil trial, and so then he ended up getting money for it.
Sorry.
These are facts. That there was no bias there.
Okay.
Try again.
Holy crap. Okay,
Right.
so we
okay,
have
whatever. Dude.
Okay, we have way gone off of the plot here, right? And we can't even agree on basics, okay? Because we have to agree on some basics here that apparently we aren't. So we're gonna have to go down the line to maybe understand where we're all at on this, because maybe we're not on the same page. Okay, if a powerful man or individual, right, within an industry, uses that power, right, and to say that they can either make or break your career, right, and that implies that if you have sex with them, positive things will happen. Can we understand that sexual assault? Can we all agree on that one? If we can agree on that one, we can make some progress.
Yeah, that sounds coercive. Sure.
No.
the
Don't
bimbo
lose
theory.
No,
let me stop.
back it up. Fanatic, is that sexual assault?
It depends on how sexual assault is determined on each state. So different states have different laws and different terms for what would be sexual assault. But if you just want to go on the general sense of the word, taking coercion could be considered assault in most states, I would imagine. So yeah, I would say that's probably sexual assault in most states.
Do you consider it to be sexual assault?
I just said yeah. What?
You consider it to be okay? I didn't, because you said a bunch of other stuff that I didn't care about.
Wait, what was your question?
My question is,
what was your question?
Sure, I'll say it again. If a powerful individual uses that power, right, in a coercive manner to get sex, can we agree that that's sexual assault?
Yes.
100%. Okay, great. All right. So, GSU.
I say yes, but I think it depends on the case. But I say yes generally.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I would say yes. But there could be some situation that
Right.
could be dreamed up, but the answer would be
All
no.
right.
But yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah,
Chris.
like
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, Prime?
No,
Because this is a,
no. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. All right. Chris.
Yes.
All right. Baja.
Yes. If it's coercive in nature, yes.
Mad Latin.
Yes, coercion, intimidation, bullying of sexual nature is sexual harassment.
Azzy.
if he defines it like that, I have to say yes.
And Fanatic, just so you know, my friend Joe wants to talk to you in the open panel. You've caught her attention. So if you could stick around for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Joe, we're using the bimbo theory. Huh?
But okay, great. So all right, look, we've established that baseline because I wasn't sure we were on the same page. It sounded like we weren't before, but that's good. No, this is progress. All right, great. So we can agree that's sexual assault. So now, looking at it within that framework, Bill Cosby, powerful man in an industry, tells these women, right, that he can make their career, right, or that he can break their career or whatever, right? And this is not just one woman who said that, right? Okay, so he does this, a pattern of this, of let's come to my house and let's try out, all right? Like try out for the part, okay? So can we understand that in that situation, let's forget the drugs, put them out of, let's ignore that, all right? Put them out of the situation. In that context, if he says, hey, after that, let's have sex, right? Even if a woman says yes, because remember that coercive part, right? Even if a woman says yes, could that be sexual assault?
So I think the question that you're asking is a little bit it's too open-ended for me to just directly answer yes to that. Because from the thing that you framed, the way you framed this, then you're basically saying because of Cosby's power, it would have been impossible for him to have consensual sex with any of the women in those encounters. Like, and that just seems untrue.
That's the question
If those women happened to be interested, they could have.
That's the question I wanted to ask you. That's why I was like, hey, I want to, because we had this conversation and Joe was there, Destiny. We had a conversation on your open panel where it was almost such that if Destiny has sex with a fan, that's sexual assault. Like that's almost what y'all was like. No, I think it actually directly was said. So you're setting up a situation where you're saying it's impossible for anyone with resources to have consensual sex. And if that's your framework, that's what I was trying to challenge. And it just doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry.
Do you think that there?
Can you ask your question? Can you ask your question?
Yes. Do you think that people with lots of resources can have consensual sex with people who are gigantic fans of them or blah, blah, blah?
Okay. Yeah. A fan. Actually, we had a very long conversation about this. Funny enough, we had with Destiny here a long time ago, and then I got canceled right after that. It's funny. But yeah, you can have sex with a fan. You can do that. Yes, that's a thing that you can do. Yeah, and there can be a power. So okay. Part of the problem here is the power imbalance used in a coercive manner. But in most relationships, there is a power imbalance, right? And
Yes.
one way or another, right? Like a man and a woman, the man happens to make more money than the woman, right? Then you could say there's a power imbalance within that relationship, right? So is all the sex that happens in there within that relationship is that coercive? No, it's not, right? We can understand that, right? We understand these nuances. But I'm talking about in this specific situation where he's saying that I can make or break your career, right? And then they say like,
Hold on,
have sex with me, and then they're saying they didn't want to do it. Like, can we understand that's a problem? And then there's the drugs, right? That's also there, but we can push that aside for now, right? We can ignore that for now. But then there's the drugs.
Prime, there's a problem with what you're saying here because you're asking
Yeah.
the question, and I love that you said this statement. I wrote it down. You said the problem is power imbalance used in a coercive manner, but you've also said there can be relationships in which in which it's not coercive. So then that means that having that power imbalance any sexual encounter is not necessarily coerced.
Yeah.
So then now, in hindsight, I cannot just automatically apply the idea that these had to have been coercive and use just that there is a power imbalance as a barometer for that. You would have to prove some sort of coercion. You keep making a statement like he's saying, I can make or break your career. I don't remember anyone literally making this statement. Cosby told me I will break your career. It seemed like, even if you want to believe he's a predator, that he at least had the wherewithal and the sensibilities to tell people, oh, just come on, we'll just see. We'll just kind of play it. I might be able to advance your career. We'll see what happens, right? Like even from the women's testimony. So he never directly said I would break your career or any of that stuff. And again, when we start, that's why I kept saying when we start getting into coercion, that you got to get a little bit more specific, especially if we're talking about legally. Do I think that he probably used his influence to get himself to have sexual encounters with these women? Probably. But I would say the same thing about Neo. I would say the same thing about Trey Songz, or literally any other successful artist or successful stars. Celebrities tend to use their sphere of influence in order to get sex. It's a sensible thing to do for niggas that don't want to put in some sort of work. Do I think that it's gross? Probably. Do I think it's something reprehensible? Sure. Would I say that it's rape? Not necessarily, unless I have proof.
Okay. Anyone?
So
Go ahead.
this was
Please go
so
ahead.
I mean the thing is like the case that is specifically related to why Cosby ended up in jail. This was not a I will make your career sort of thing. Bill Cosby was acting as a mentor to this individual at Temple University. He had a relationship with this individual and her mother. They would have phone conversations. She'd come over for dinner periodically. There was an active relationship and phone calls and everything was happening. The sexual assault allegedly happened after the pills were given to her. There were a few advances that he had made, which she declined. She pushed him away when she tried to unbutton his pants. Or, I'm sorry, when he tried to unbutton her pants. She pushed him away when she was sleeping on a couch. It's all covered in the first few pages of this document. And then, on the night that he gave her these mystery pills, which he did not identify, he claims that he referred to them as Benadryl, but that's a
It
says in that
He
thing
still
that they
admitted
were
he didn't
pro-
identify.
it says in that thing were proven to be Benadryl. Just FYI, the document that you linked says that they tested the pills and they were Benadryl. That's all I'm saying. But you can keep on.
those specific pills or what? What was the actual claim? Hold on. That's fine. Can you give me the page number for
I'll
that?
find the page.
How do you
Appreciate it.
test pills
How do
from
you-
2004?
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I'm
really
trying to think.
curious
I
about that, but
understand what you're
that's fine.
saying. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying this is in the document that he linked. Don't
Yeah, no,
argue
I'm
with
saying.
me.
No. It's
I
a
can
lot.
see
It's
what
just a
you're-
logic
I
here
know
that they
GSU, I
could
don't
have
know.
tested some pills,
So-
but they don't have to test
So,
the pills.
I mean,
that
like
are
the thing is,
prescribed.
like he took these pills that I don't know how whatever. So she took these pills, and she, in her
Okay,
testimony,
wait. I want to read this.
Yeah. Yeah, go
It
ahead.
says
Which page number is this, by the way?
It's at the top of page 9, where it's
Yeah.
talking about how she went to the police, and it says Cosby admitted that he told Constantine that her and her mother write down the name of the pills, blah blah blah, everything that Baha read. And it says after the interview, without being asked to do so, Cosby provided the pills, which laboratory testing confirmed to be
No,
Benadryl.
not the pills. Read that correctly. He provided the police with pills. So
Yeah.
he gave
Yeah, of course
the
he
police.
couldn't give the pills that she consumed.
I don't even know why you'd bring that up, Gabe, because I
I
know you're
said
trying to defend him. No. Just hear me out for a second. Just hear me out for a
Gambit, you
second.
giving them out.
But can't you
I'm
just see
giving
that how
it's
like
in
that
the
could not make
document
sense?
that y'all
You
linked.
threw a red herring.
Yeah, but like
It's
that could
in the
just be
damn
any in the
document.
same
What
way
the hell
that
you
there's
saying?
doubt
Yeah,
on what the
but
woman's
you
saying, in the same
can't-
way there's doubt in the woman in the document, there's doubt on like Cosby being able to provide pills that he gave to her years ago. Right? Like I know you can see that.
No,
Like,
you can
literally,
challenge.
okay,
You can
so-
challenge what the
so-
document that Mad Lab says.
No.
I'm
We're
just
not
saying.
challenging. No, we're not. Don't associate this with me. No. Like this is my document. Fine, but this
That's what
I
I'm
mean, it's not my. It's the people's document too, by the way.
All that
So-
says you
so
linked
there's
it.
document.
No,
He
hold
didn't
on,
bro.
write
Okay,
the
hold on.
document, GSU.
Can't say that he linked it.
He
Well,
didn't
y'all-
write the
hold
document,
on.
GSU.
This is
Wait,
stupid. Let me
I
just.
said, are you really stupid? I said the document that he linked, and now you're saying, oh, you can't say he linked it. Are you really that fucking stupid?
No. Just
You know
bear with
I'm stupid, but come
Okay.
on, GSU. This is legalese. They said he
Bro,
provided
okay.
pills to the. Listen,
Like,
listen.
look,
We
yeah,
all
okay.
can do a little critical
GSU.
thinking.
GSU. The point is, he could give this woman 3 pills that
I
could be
agree.
anything, and then he
agree.
could hand the police a box of Benadryl afterwards.
Could have gave him fish oil for all I
That's
know.
not the way.
Could have gave him
I'm
fish
sorry.
oil,
I get it. I
Tylenol.
get it. I get it. If you didn't read your own
Okay.
document here, I'll read it for you. Okay.
All right.
In
pardon
February,
me.
in February, same page. In February 2005, then District Attorney Castro reviewed Constrand's interviews and Cosby's written answers in order to assess the viability of a prosecution of Cosby. The fact that Constrand had failed to promptly file a complaint against Cosby troubled the district attorney. In DA Castro's view, such a delay diminished the reliability of any recollections and undermined the investigators' efforts to collect forensic evidence. Moreover, DA Castro identified a number of inconsistencies in Constrand's various statements to investigators. After Cosby provided his written answers, police officers searched his, I don't know how to pronounce this, residence and found no evidence that, in their view, could be used to confirm or corroborate Constrand's allegation. Following the search of Cosby's home, Constrand was interviewed by police again. DA Castro noted that there were inconsistencies in that interview, which further impaired Constrand's credibility in his eyes. He also learned that before she contacted police in Canada, Constrand had contacted civil attorneys in Philadelphia, likely for the purpose of pursuing financial compensation in a lawsuit against Cosby. Freak out of here from your document.
Whoa. You're getting all excited about this shit. Now, I told you what this document is, right? Like, you know what this document is, right? This is the justification that got Cosby out of jail. This is the whole case.
This is from the justices.
Yeah.
Yes. This is directly from the justices.
What you're describing,
bro.
What you're describing,
Chill.
What you're describing is like damn near every rape case. This is why rape cases. 1 second, pause. And 1 second. Thank you, Destiny, for being so kind as to rate us with 1,956 individuals. It's really amazing. No, apparently they've been listening, so they know. Anyway, hi. Yeah, we're talking about the Bill Cosby thing again. And it's a huge thing. I know you've been listening. You know what's going on. Follow the channel. And make sure notification bell are on because we do this 6 days a week. Don't want you to miss out. Okay, you know my spiel. Great. So what you're talking about. Huh? Sorry? What you're...
I said he's coming on the open.
No, he's not coming on over.
I'm finna talk to him.
What you're talking about?
Yo, shout out to Destiny for the last spell, bro.
Oh boy.
But that's neither here nor there.
Oh
Go
my
ahead.
god, guys, everyone, guys and gals. What you're talking about is how difficult it is to prosecute rape cases. Yes, you're talking about all the difficulties involved with prosecuting a rape case. Yes, that the victims wait for a long time because one, it takes a long time for them sometimes to even understand that they that what happened to them was sexual assault, right? Because sometimes you do actually have to recontextualize these things, right? Because the same example I used last night, talking about marital rape, right? Before there wasn't that concept, people didn't know what it was, right? But women have been experiencing it. We can understand marital rape is a thing, right? Okay, we all agree on that? Great. Right?
Yes.
So we understand that's a thing, but not all women would have said that they experienced that. If we had been a fly on the wall, we would have said, hey, maybe that's pretty rapey, right? They didn't understand that's what it was, right? It took them a while to realize, oh, hey, yeah, I was sexually assaulted. Yeah, I didn't actually want to do any of that. I didn't consent to any of that. That's the thing that happens, right? Right? Or just come to grips with it, and even if they was more clear, right? Come to grips at, oh, I'm a quote unquote victim. That's part of it. And then on the other end, then not having physical evidence. Exactly, I said that from the very beginning, right? We said that from the beginning. That's how that works, unfortunately, right? And mixing things very difficult. Stories changing. Well, they lie. Some women do lie when it comes to talking about these things, right? They lie to say that it didn't happen, right? Because look, you had this bad experience, but who the fuck is gonna believe you? Especially in the 80s, who's gonna believe you? Some of these women.
That's not what happened.
So hold on. No, I'm talking about the wider expanse of this. You brought up all these problems with Constand, right?
This direct case.
Yes, but I'm talking about like all those issues you brought up is why it's so difficult to deal with rape cases in general, right? There's nothing special about this case. With what you read.
Talking.
No, there are
inconsistencies.
Specific.
No, that's
right,
not even. That's literally not even. That's what I'm saying. You didn't even let me finish that part. That part is not special either. The fact that there are inconsistencies in a person's story, especially one that has been so long. And this is the part that I think is your best, your strongest point, right? Because it has been so long, right? Memories do shift.
Wait, this was 2 weeks. This was 2 weeks later, right now.
Sorry,
the document he sent us.
Hold on. When I'm okay, thank you for the hype train, everyone. I very much appreciate the gifting. If you could help us out, the hype train would be very kind of you. I'm sorry, I got to focus on this, but if you got help us out with that hype train, I'd very much appreciate it. Yeah. So sorry, I thought Fanatic said it was many years later. This is what he said. Like,
No, it was. I'm wrong.
Okay,
I'm wrong.
Okay.
She kept it secret for nearly a year.
Yeah.
Until one night in January 2005. That's the first time.
Yeah.
I read something else that said 2 weeks later, but it wasn't referring to from the date when it originally happened.
Okay, no, fair enough. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that they have inconsistencies. Although they'll say like, oh yeah, well, no, everything was great. It was great. Like, they'll say, how was it? You were at Bill Cosby's last night. Well, what was that like? Oh, it was great. I had a good time. What are you gonna say about this guy, right? So yeah, rape cases are a nightmare for prosecutors, and the fact that a prosecutor decided not to go after this case, yeah, sure, a lot of prosecutors are going to do that. And then after that, they had another piece of evidence being the interview, right? The interview. Now, I stipulate the fact that it was prosecutorial misconduct in that, right? And maybe in the eyes of the law, that he should not have been convicted of this particular case and this manner. I'll actually stipulate that for you. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at the preponderance of evidence here, right? And not just what was presented there, but also these other women and their testimony, and say, you know what? He might be a serial fucking rapist. We might be able to make those conclusions, right? Correct?
We all say he might be. It's possible, yes. I don't think nobody's gonna deny.
It's possible that my career as a porn star will take off, but like, I mean, I don't know. Anything's possible.
So that first document I linked was the majority decision that got Cosby out of jail. I have linked a second link, which is the dissent explaining everything else. And I think this document has more to do with what we're trying to get to, which is whether Bill Cosby is a rapist. I'm going through it now. I think the dissent is actually probably pretty important to look at as well.
Oh man. And the other,
this one's only 9 pages.
We never even got to. So we still have some time left, so we'll continue on, right? But another aspect we didn't talk about that my friend Joe was kind enough to remind me of was the racial aspect. We never even got past that, right? Saying that, I guess we've seen with other celebrities, right? Black celebrities who've been accused of misconduct, whether it be sexual assault or physical assault, or right, i.e. Chris Brown, right? Of the, well, not wife beater, but girlfriend beater. Yeah, sure, right? We could say that. That people defend them, right? Because they don't want to take down a person of African American descent. Like, this is a successful black man, and I don't want to do that. Just like in personal relationships, right?
What?
Yeah, people do that.
They don't want to take him down because they're.
No. I'm saying, hold on. No, listen. Maybe I'm saying, hold on. Listen. Okay. People will say that like, this person, especially in the 80s, right, when they're even less successful African Americans, right? This person is.
You talking about our community? You're talking about our community, black people who don't like seeing their black stars fall from. Okay, fall from grace.
So that's one thing, right? But one thing, white people can also feel the same way about the situation, right? And then two, yeah, well, holy fuck, yes, there are allies who don't want to see black men.
But these people didn't do that, I think.
Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna finish. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right. 3 minutes left in the hype train. If you guys could help us out to get the level 4 hype train, it'd be much appreciated. And thank you for all those who've donated so far. so there's people who don't want to take down a prominent African American, right? But then you can also relate that back to personal relationships, right? We see this in the black community. Why some people don't want to report assaults or report crimes in general because I'm afraid of what the justice system is going to do to this person, right? And I don't think they're a monster,
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they're like being the victim of the assault. I don't think this person is a monster, right? And I don't want to see them go through what happens. And plus, I don't, especially if you're one of Cosby victims, doesn't mean you know all of Cosby victims, so you don't realize the full extent of the situation, right? So you can make the judgment that like I don't want to go through it, right? I don't want to be the only one out there saying this about the most powerful man in entertainment, right? And two, like I might actually, despite being assaulted, I might still like the guy, and I decide that I'm not gonna put him through this either. Until later on, and people start telling their stories, like, okay, I guess I do. Like, look at all those other people that got hurt. Maybe some of them after me. So like, okay, I got to tell my story now. A fanatic, because I talked over you a bunch.
I feel like, man, I don't, it's really crazy to me when we're having a conversation right now on this panel, right now, to start generalizing to the point that we're not addressing the things that I just said right now. So I just pointed out to you all of the things that literally led to the freaking DA at the time making the statement that for all of these reasons he's felt like, man, it would be impossible to prove. Like, yeah, man, all of these things are shaky and shady as hell when they decide, oh, I'm going to contact a civil lawyer first before you even go for it. So it's like, oh, we're already starting to doubt whether or not this is really about justice for you. And then like then you lie or you can mistruth. Just generally talking about people sometimes forget things. That's true. But in this specific case, she literally talked to investigators multiple times and her stories were constantly contradictory. Then on top of that, he went on to say that it seemed like the fact that she intentionally hung out with him so many more times after this event is a little bit inconsistent typically with the people who would come forward with the complaint. Number one. I mean, as another point. Then on top of that, she literally was trying her best to go ahead and trap him in conversation and kept trying to get him to say something on the phone, which of course then also seems a little bit suspicious because it's like, oh, now you're trying to entrap the dude. So that's obviously not part of the legal process. On top of the fact that Pennsylvania is a two-party recording state. Then the literal district attorney comes forward after all of those things and says, for all of these reasons, I don't think that I can try this nigga. I don't think I can get him. But
it's not about legal. It's about the question was what?
I'll tell you what I can do. What I can do is I can circumvent his ability to testify against himself. He literally testified it. If need be, I'll read it to you. Right? It's in that same dissenting opinion. I mean, same majority opinion. He literally said at this point. So here's what I'll do. This is how I can still get you some justice. I'll go ahead and I will admit out loud that we're not going to charge you. Then that way you can take him to a civil trial. You can maybe get some justice that way because he recognized he had literally evidence to actually support the idea that he was guilty, and then literally after that he tried to find a circumventing his ability to not have to testify against himself. So clearly he intentionally testified that he violated this nigga's Fifth Amendment rights. Now the fact that you guys can turn a blind eye to this miscarriage of justice,
we're not talking about justice.
You are. If
we're not. We're talking about whether
you are. If you're making the statement that, for example, Chris made a statement earlier. Chris made the statement. Chris made the statement earlier. Chris made the statement earlier that they made an exception and they should be able to try him again a third time. And he also made the statement that all of you, the vast majority of you, have made the statement that he was only released on a technicality. So don't sit here and then now tell me.
It is a technicality.
That's what it is.
Don't sit here trying to say,
but you say that, chill, because
fanatic, chill. No, hold on. No.
Don't tell me to chill when I'm talking and you're talking over me the entire time.
You're talking over everybody the entire time. You know,
I was still talking. I wasn't done. I'd leave myself on mute when everyone else is talking.
I am talking over you. Chill.
I've been dealing with too many white people in chess club, bro. Come on, man. Don't yell at us.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Let's everybody stay grounded, bro.
Right. You need to take it off. You're hot. Take it off.
That's true. I'm real chilly right now. I am.
Your head can't breathe.
Okay. All right. Make your point. We don't. Come on.
The point is that the question was: is Bill Cosby a rapist? Not whether or not he was given all his due processes? That was our initial question. So if you're willing to acknowledge that Bill Cosby is a rapist, I'm willing to acknowledge that he wasn't given his due process because I think that's true too. That's the whole point. We're not debating it.
Listen, me admitting whether or not me admitting whether he's a rapist or not shouldn't be you admitting that they violated due process shouldn't be contingent on me admitting that he's a rapist. I don't believe he's a rapist, or at least I don't believe there's any good evidence to suggest that he's a rapist. And if you would supply me with some, then I would be willing to admit it.
You mean the acknowledgement? No, the evidence that's being thrown out that got him in jail in the first place was evidence. The recordings were evidence. It wasn't legally obtained, but it's still actual evidence that proves.
Recordings? What recordings? No, they didn't.
The recordings she made.
They didn't even bring those recordings up in trial, did they?
They didn't bring it up in trial because
of course, it's not evidence. It wasn't evidence. So it wasn't evidence.
She recorded
conversations. Bring it up if it was damning.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry,
and not just that. He acknowledges that there's.
They can't hear you on stream. One at a time.
Madlab, I just want to ask you a question. If you think those recordings are in some way damning, why do you think the prosecution would not bring them up in the trial to try to convict them?
Illegal.
They're illegal because it's not about them being damning. It's about the consent of the recording consent in the state that happened. First of all.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
This is what's weird. This is what's weird. I feel, and this is the energy I'm telling that you're giving off Gambit and Fnatic in this. Maybe not Gambit as much, but Fnatic. Clearly, this is like an OJS case where it's kind of like, at the end of the day, the letter of the law has freed this man, and at the end of the day, we have to make our personal judgments on what actually happened. I think what everyone has a problem with is just like the vigor you have with the opposite defense. When at the end of the day, in my opinion, even after hearing what you've said, I can admit that maybe it's not as clear cut as everyone in the media, whatever narrative that you like to say, spins it out to be. However, I think it absolutely is super weird that we are just like appealing to the letter of the law in a lot of areas and just being very defensive over Cosby. I think there is more to the story, and I just hate that it feels like we're defending a rapist at the end of the day.
So I can explain. Yeah. I can answer this really easily. So I think it's possible that something happened. However, and this is the conversation that Counterpoints was having with Destiny, where like we try to think that there's two versions of innocence, right? There's like legal innocence, and then there's like whether we really think you're innocent, regardless of what the law says. I think it's dangerous to create this narrative where there's this other thing, and we're going to hold people to this account. I think that unfortunately, with our system, there might be people that get off. I don't think there's compelling evidence here, so I have to say, you know what? Maybe that nigga didn't do it. I have to err on the side of he's probably innocent if there's not evidence, rather than err on the side of that niggas definitely did it. Like,
I mean, this is exactly why rape victims don't actually come forward because of stuff like this. It's always a he said, she said type situation. And because we have to err on the side of the, I mean, the thing is, we need, okay, go ahead.
Well, that's just the truth, Gambit. I mean, that literally, regardless of how you feel about it, that's just the truth what you said. Like, the nature of these kind of crimes.
Do you not recognize that you literally begged the question when you made your statement? You literally said, you did, because what you said, I get it. You guys are talking about like, whether or not there's evidence or something. So it feels like you're defending a rapist. In order for us to be defending a rapist, there needs to be evidence that he's a rapist. You're putting the cart before the horse. If there's good evidence to suggest he's a rapist, then at that point for us to defend him, we be defend a rapist. Right now,
I forgot that we're a full-on enemy here, and I had to like literally pencil out my statement and before I say, because I didn't realize you guys would take the most like bad faith fucking interpretation of this.
Bad faith.
Clearly, I already said you're still like talking to you. You're still going. All right, I know you're hot, but like, look, clearly, I am ceding some ground to this where I understand your point of view. I'm not asking you to cede 100% of your whatever your argument to me. I'm just saying that like clearly when we're siding on like if we're erring on the side of caution as far as calling these people guilty, I think it is weird that like instead of just erring on that side, we are like intensely fighting for that side, and we are appealing to weird things like there's evidence. The evidence might not be admissible in court because of consent rules in different states. Like, I'm still going, dude. I'm almost done. Like it might not be admissible in court because of consent rules in different states. I do think that's kind of like just it's really you know what, you guys are gonna have a problem with whatever I say.
Let me ask you a question because I get why he's mad, because it felt inflammatory to me too. let's imagine we were talking about a murder case, right? And you thought the person wasn't guilty. And imagine if people in the conversation posited, well, dude, you're just defending a murderer. That's how we feel. You're saying
60
that this
people
guy
dead.
definitely did it, and you're saying that we're defending his nefarious actions. The question is whether he did it or not. So you are
60
begging the
people.
question and inserting that narrative when you say, well, it feels like y'all are just defending a rapist. Like, that's inflammatory.
60 people dead in a scene. That man was there. Of course he killed him. Of course he killed him. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so
it's beyond the shadow of a doubt.
All right, so I guess the counter to it is that, like, I do, at the end of the day, I guess it is inflammatory, but if you can't wade through it, I guess I kind of do agree in the sense that I agree with both of your points in the sense that literally, I guess I can't have any kind of reason to call him guilty, and we're just gonna have to keep it at the public opinion versus like the legal opinion. However, I think it's like that's the problem. Yeah, I get it, but it's gonna happen regardless.
You can call him a rapist, but you can't call him guilty because of there was misconduct in the trial.
So Baha, like, this is where the problem comes, right? And this just has more to do with the history of the case. So when you had, like, I think her name was Gloria Allred, and she was the lawyer representing all of the various women who were making these claims, and you had Monique Presley, who was handling things from a legal perspective, like, and Gloria Allred wasn't actually interested in trying him in trial. Like, that wasn't her main focus. Her main focus was on media attention, and the reason why there was so much focus on media attention is because they realized that they had not an icicle's chance in hell on the vast majority of these cases, because in the vast majority of these cases, the statute of limitation had passed. In fact, the only one that was actually able to be tried was the Philadelphia one. California later on amended their law and allowed for longer sentences, which brought on, I believe, the E. Thomas case, which of course also had 3 different versions of the story. So the idea is the trying people, this is why this relates actually to the first topic. The trying people in the court of public opinion is disgusting to me. And it's one thing I could easily, if I was having a conversation with rational, sane individuals, then I could probably voice my opinion and probably be a little bit
rational,
less
sane
aggressive.
individual. Have a conversation with
I'm just gonna mute you. I'd be a little bit. I could be. I'm talking. I could be a little bit more.
You can't mute people on a panel.
I could be a little bit more agreeable in these conversations. But the problem comes when I'm literally listening to people in their opening statement say, for sure he's guilty, and then when I ask them for the evidence, they're unwilling, or they start falling back a little bit, like, well, I don't know, there's testimony, there's just a number of women that said it, and you start asking them, is there actual testimony? Well, he admitted to it. He didn't actually admit to it. That's what the media said, but he didn't. Well, and literally everything they're saying is just wrong, and they have to walk that back. He admitted to giving her Quaaludes, then he walked that back. He admitted that literally it just keeps happening over and over again, and it's almost like gaslighting, because it's ridiculous.
You literally made up everything that happened tonight. Like, that's not what happened at all.
Sure.
Fanatic, here's a second
I believe that you believe that.
Casey Anthony was guilty?
You believe
yes. Most likely. Sure.
Chris.
Man, I see why Destiny called you a racist, man.
Yep, I got you.
Chris. You're muted.
Wait, what? You said Casey Anthony, but all the things that happened.
I think there's Casey Anthony. Are you gonna compare these two things? Do you not understand how different these cases are? One of them happened almost immediately. She was literally directly responsible for the kid. She literally lied to the people afterwards. Her story was completely inconsistency when she was talking to the various officers. Are you literally trying to compare these two? Do you follow that case at all? Or are you just literally posturing to just say something with literally no correlation whatsoever and just trying to paint a picture? Which of those is happening? Which of you in this panel actually followed that trial?
I did follow the trial. I followed the fucking trial.
I'm
sorry, not the Casey Anthony trial. I'm not sure.
We all followed the trial.
Yeah. I didn't follow the Casey Anthony trial.
Right. So then how can you make?
Oh, I didn't make comparison. Okay, fair enough. I didn't make that comparison.
Of course, because you're actually intelligent, whereas these people are literally just grasping for straws because they don't actually have an argument.
You're looking at one lens and saying, oh, Bill Cosby has to be innocent because you want Bill Cosby to be innocent. You don't care about what actually happened.
No,
you want Bill Cosby to not be guilty.
There's no evidence to prove that he's guilty.
There's
That's the difference.
In the civil suit,
and you haven't been able to supply any of it because you don't actually
Fanatic, hold on. Mad lad, hold on. What do you mean there's no evidence? What do you mean there's no evidence?
He filed the case, and he never even read the document I supplied, right?
Wait, you're talking about the
that doesn't matter. That's not a. We don't need a gotcha on this. We don't need a gotcha on that.
Posturing here. I I know all the things about this case, and
Fanatic,
I'm going to tell
hold
you
on,
what
hold
it
on,
is.
my lad, hold on.
Original same person. And
Malab,
Fanatic,
that's
you
not
have
the
no
case.
idea what Reginald was saying.
Wait, Malab, that's not from
Nice
the
try,
case.
buddy. You
That's
put up
why
a good
they
fight.
overturned the case. Wait, Malab, these things are different. You're saying that he doesn't know the case. You're pointing to a document about why they overturned it. This wasn't a part of the case, right?
This
So
is
you
why
can't
they
say that's-
overturned. Okay, all right.
Shit just came out.
Okay.
So technically speaking,
You want something?
so
Listen.
technically speaking,
Malab, listen. This is all I want you to get. The fucking
All right.
case happened over the course of whatever year he got convicted, right? 2 years ago, right? That was
2
the
years
case.
ago.
When you say somebody doesn't know the case, you can't point to some shit that came out to overturn it a few days ago. You can't say you don't know the case because of this
fine,
document. That's
fine.
crazy.
So, all right, fine. So maybe I misunderstood what he meant. All right, so maybe he misunderstood maybe I misunderstood what he meant by I followed the case. I
Someone said F
presumed.
in the chat.
No.
Is the stream
But the
still on?
point is,
Yeah, stream's still on. Yeah.
the point is that we have a lot of unknowns in this case, and saying that there is a lack of evidence proving that he's a rapist is very different from saying there's a lack of evidence proving that guilty. If there's insuppliable evidence, if there's evidence that you can't take to trial because it was obtained illegally or through coercion, that's very different from saying that there isn't evidence at all, because there is. There's clear evidence. He
agree.
admitted to
I
giving her
agree.
pills. Okay.
I agree with you. No. Hold on though. This is where we can see this again. You guys keep trying to make these really large logical leaps here. He admitted to giving her pills. Absolutely. No one's denying that. But there was plenty of surrounding context within that question that was not, he was not implying that he gave her pills with the intention of raping her. And that's where you're that's where you're leaping. If you were to ask me the same question, did you bring liquor to old girl's house so that you could go ahead and break her off something proper? Yes, I might have done so. That doesn't mean I raped her. Clearly, we intentionally consumed the alcohol and then proceeded to do what we do. That doesn't mean I raped somebody. There's a
difference between pills and alcohol, though.
And there's
First of
also
all, we
one
gotta,
more
we
thing
gotta
that I think
talk
is
about
really
it.
important
yes,
here.
there's a difference between pills and alcohol. There's a difference between crack and alcohol.
There is.
But guess what?
No. And the fact that if you're
Quaaludes
bringing
are not
alcohol,
racist.
someone knows it's alcohol. If you're giving someone pills, they don't know what the pill is. So
Well,
that doesn't even
unless-
defeat your
unless you
analogy.
tell
It
me-
just doesn't make
unless-
sense.
unless- take the
Something
pill.
else that we have to
Unless
say.
he tells them.
So something else.
Them Quaaludes. Some of them admit it.
Something else we have to say, and God, there's just so much to this, right? Is that there's a spectrum, right? There's literally a spectrum here of what these assaults look like, right? All the way from the stranger in the bushes jumping out to grab someone, right? To a friend who didn't realize what they were doing and hurt someone unintentionally, right? They had interaction, sexual interaction, and then hurting someone unintentionally, right? Now, all of those can fall under the banner of sexual assault, right? All of them, but they are clearly different things, right? Clearly different things. And it seems like we're mixing all these things up together. This is what we were discussing last night, how we're like mixing all these things together. Now, I think, right, where this falls on the spectrum of what Bill Cosby did was criminal, right? I think it does go that far. But like, if you're saying, right, a fanatic. I'm sorry, this has been a lot. Fanatic, right? You're talking about like bringing over alcohol, right? Into a situation, right, and then having sex with the person, right? Is that sexual assault? Well, that's a good question, right? And it actually does depend on the context, right? It depends on lots of things that are happening there. We can all understand this, right? We can understand that you can get a person blackout drunk, right? But you weren't saying that, and I don't believe you. And I don't believe you would do that, right? They get a girl blackout drunk and then take advantage of her, right? But you can also say that we can both get like really drunk, right? We could both get a little tipsy, and then we're doing things that we might otherwise not have done if we were sober. We can understand that, and that falls somewhere within the spectrum, right? All right, good. Well, at least we're on the same page here, right?
Thank you for framing it that way. I appreciate that because listen, that's exactly my point. There is a spectrum. You can give someone so many because again, Quaaludes were recreationally taken at the time. Cosby admitted, and he said so in his deposition, that they recreationally took the Quaaludes recreationally. And so did so many other celebrities in the 70s. I get it. That was before our time, but this was a recreational drug that people intentionally engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
This is a known thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. If you're a boomer, if you're a Zoomer and you hear the media representation, it sounds like, oh, he was just roofing chicks. That's not what was going on. He didn't admit to that at all. So the idea was, that's why I'm saying it's an unknown, because there are degrees. It depends on how much you're giving that. So it depends it depends on how much of the drugs. It depends on whether or not it was given consensually. All of those things. So yes, those are the unknowns. And until we have those knowns, we can't know that he's a rapist. That's
circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is used to prove criminal intent in a large portion of cases. That's like the general procedure, right? Because you can't actually go into someone's head and decide whether they figure something out or not. There's a large quantity, there's a large amount of circumstantial evidence here. He gave women pills. He gave this woman pills. He acknowledged that he recreationally took Quaaludes, but recreational on Bill Cosby's end may or may not be the accurate case, right? Like he may be saying recreational, but we don't know what the women thought when they were taking these pills, whether it was recreational for them or not. These are also unknown.
You're going too far with recreation. You're going too far with circumstantial.
That's fair.
I'm sorry. So
we're running out of time. Chris, please.
Look, do we agree that testimony is evidence? Like, is testimony evidence at all?
Yes, testimony is evidence.
Testimony be used to establish a pattern behavior?
Yes.
Right. So, like, I don't see how we can't use that, especially with the knowledge that Bill Cosby gives women like these drugs in sexual situations. It doesn't matter if they're recreational at the time. Cocaine was recreational. It's still like a drug that can be abused and cause some harm, some real harm, right? And with Quaaludes, again, an effect of Quaaludes is drowsiness. You can be put to sleep on that. You can lose some motor functions. You can black out, right?
It's also for alcohol too.
What they did was use testimonies to establish a pattern of behavior. Just because this technicality worked out to get him out doesn't mean that pattern of behavior isn't still there, right? Doesn't mean the testimony of all those other women who like cooperated, that pattern of behavior isn't still there. They don't have the physical evidence, no, because it's been a long time, yes, but this is like through decades of time. Like these things happen to different women over time. We're like establishing a pattern of behavior, and we have to do that sometimes, especially like with other cases, because that's the only evidence we can go by. Because like it's so hard to prove these things. You have to use a testimony of people, and if you don't if out the gate, like your dimension, like the majority of all of these testimonies, then like there's no way we can convince you. There's no way we can go forward with this argument.
Yeah, I think even more telling is if you're saying, because this is what I've been getting at this entire time, if you're saying simply a preponderance of testimonies is enough to convince you something criminal, because yes, you can use circumstantial evidence to determine intent. You can't use circumstantial evidence alone to determine guilt. That's not enough. And so there's different barriers of entry, or there's different barriers that you would be using depending on what you're trying to prove in a case. So because obviously for intent, we don't have anything besides a circumstantial evidence, but that's a very different situation. So that's enough for you guys. You guys stopped there, and that's the problem.
And no, that's not actually fair. If 60 people came over and accused Dave Chappelle
of murder,
sexual assault,
or murder,
whatever,
they saw it,
nobody would believe
and there's
it,
no
right?
physical evidence. Okay.
Unless there was evidence.